Welcome to the Lost Lowdown, podcast number 91, with your hosts, Claude and Justin.
What's up, guys?
So we're continuing our commentary series, back with episode 109, Solitary. So, Justin, this is, we were just talking about in the pre-podcast banter, back in the green room, as it were.
Pre-show. Mm-hmm.
Because both of our rooms are painted green.
Yes.
We were.
I don't know why we call it the green room, though.
We're just silly that way. We were saying how this will be pretty much the third time we've covered Solitary.
Yes.
We did it, of course, in our retrospective podcast, podcast 35, which was our favorite of season 1 podcast, which both you and I picked, and then we let the fans pick, and had a podcast about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what there is left to say about Solitary, but we'll surely find a word or two to say about it.
I think so. It's come up a lot over the years, and I would say that of the episodes we've watched so far, this is actually the one I have the most loaded expectations about. I think because, well, why is it? I guess because, first of all, I know we're going to meet Russo. I remember basically what happens in this episode. I feel like I remember it maybe a little better than the last few we've watched. I always saw it as a key episode, an important one. I always thought that the stuff it introduces was significant. And by always, I mean, up to season 5 or so.
Yeah, then you finished the show and you realize it didn't matter at all.
Yeah, now I realize that the Russo story is actually kind of a small pocket of Lost as a whole, really. And
who's Russo? You mean that lady Jen met and you time traveled?
Yeah, that's who I mean.
Okay, just making sure. That's the only reference I have to her.
And I think, in terms of like, oh God, that's so sad. I think in terms of like, if you're detail obsessed about the show, which I'll admit I am, and it's probably clear from this podcast if you've ever listened to it, the Russo story is just covered with inconsistencies and details that don't make sense, and there's just so much that it's almost like The Cabin in terms of like being a kind of incoherent mess. So going into this initial episode, I feel like I'm going to feel the same way once we get to the Cabin episode.
One of many incoherent messes on this show, I think, is, and I think it's probably no coincidence that it's incoherent and a mess. Because
it's hard to be incoherent and very neatly arranged. I don't know how you pull that off, but I'd like to see it.
Yeah, okay. I won't go into my definition of those two terms, but
okay.
We'll let Webster decide.
Okay. Webster,
not Miriam. Not Miriam, though, because he's biased.
Yes.
I was going to
never trust Miriam.
I was going to say it's probably very messy because for one big reason, because it's such an early addressed mystery.
True.
True. And this episode definitely, I definitely agree with what you said about, the episode is definitely it's a turning point in the story, in the season. The first other person we've seen on the island.
Yeah.
And of course, tying into, one of the biggest mysteries so far in season 1, which is, the French woman and the whole radio transmission thing. So it's, picking back up on that story that they've been, carrying, since to the beginning.
Right. Yeah. They've been trying to triangulate that signal and unsuccessfully now they're actually going to show us who it was and tell us more about, how that came about. But I guess and then they haven't really been talking about it so far. But I despite her unimportance, I do think that I do think that Russo was a key character up until maybe the end of season 3 when she finally reunites with Alex.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
I mean, her story's over. I mean, basically her story's over when she gets Alex. You know, in terms of her character arc, she's fulfilled when she gets her daughter back.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I definitely buy that analysis. You know, it was, you know, like most characters on Lost had tragic endings, and she was no different. You know.
Yeah.
Sort of having a little bit of time to spend with Alex, but not anything, you know, anything big.
Right,
very motherly, or not that I don't, you know. She probably would have had a hard time being a mother at that point.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, this episode, The Solitary, is great. It always stood out to me as, you know, one of the best of season 1, and not again. Another non-coincidence is it's about Sayid, who is, you know, one of my favorite characters on the show of all time, and especially in the first couple seasons, you know, up to season 5 or 6, you know.
Yeah.
He
like
he
so many
things.
things.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's a pattern forming, and my brain is tuned to recognize that. Yeah, I mean, but that's what's weird. Yeah, I mean, but he was one of my favorites. This is his first big what makes Sayid, coming again off of Confidence Man, where he had to torture Sawyer.
Right.
So getting to get that part of his backstory filled in. So yeah, it's I'm excited about this episode.
Yeah.
I think, you know, for me it goes, you know, the pilot's great, Walkabout's great.
Yeah.
Then Solitary. If I have to really pick about what really stands out, and if you just kind of look at the season plot-wise in terms of, you know, a group of people stranded on an island and they're trying to get off an island, you know, really the big plot beats are in the pilot when they crash, of course,
right,
and they you know, then the first beat of the first part of the story with the distress signal.
Right.
And then, you know, then the next part of that is Sayid coming up with the triangulation and then getting hit in the head.
Yeah.
And then the next part of that is this, you know, who hit him in the head.
Right.
You know, everything in between has been not filler, but it's been character stuff, you know.
AKA character stuff.
Yeah. You know, it hasn't really been developing the plot of these people getting, you know, trying to get off an island or anything like that.
True.
And it's been about them coping with their situations, but it's been mostly, and obviously, you know, character.
True. Yeah, the story hasn't. I mean, they moved to the caves. I guess that was significant, but the story hasn't progressed much from they crashed there, they're stranded there, and they found that signal. They're trying to find it, and there's some weird stuff going on, but like. There really hasn't been any direction in the plot so far, and I think this does kind of begin that the plot actually having a direction.
Totally. You know, I'll say this: it seems a little bit strange that, you know, up until Sayid saying it, you know, who's going to map the island, you know, no one in the group thought, oh, we should explore this island.
Right.
And then ostensibly it's because they want to stay close to the beach or be found, but
stay together in general.
But I think it's because the writers didn't want them to find the others before they planned them to. So
well, that's true.
That's just what I think.
Yeah, you could look at it that way if you want.
Because, you know, there could be a Club Med on the other side of the island. They'll never know.
There kind of is.
And I say Club Med because, you know, this is the 90s, right?
Right. It's really weird. I don't know.
I'll let you agree to that. Right.
It made sense. I don't know. We're watching a show from 2004 in the 90s.
It's always the 90s.
There you go. Forever 90s here on the Lost Lowdown.
Now I want a T-shirt that says that, like Forever 90s, and some a neon strip or something.
Yep.
Like a neon sign and Lost Lowdown, Forever 90s, which makes no sense. Podcast wasn't even started in the 90s.
I know.
The show doesn't take place in the 90s.
No.
But somehow it's perfect.
Yeah, it fits.
Here at the Lost Lowdown, we're always a couple decades behind. That's what we're saying.
Okay, that's the subtext. I knew there was something there.
That's on the back of the shirt.
Oh, okay. It's not really subtext.
Well, you don't want people to miss it.
Okay.
They'll have to turn around and get it. That's what subtext is on a T-shirt. All right.
Okay.
It's on the back.
It's on the back. Can I see the subtext of that shirt? Oh, sure.
I'll turn around for you. All right. Well, enough about subtext. Let's talk about Solitary.
An episode with no subtext.
None at all. We used to talk about, the titles and what they mean in relation to the episode, and I don't think we need to about this one.
Yeah, it's pretty clear, I think.
Probably a dual meaning with both Rousseau and Saeed.
Yep.
Being lonesome souls.
Indeed, and I think it also applies to the flashback with Nadia.
Nah, I think you're wrong.
All right, then.
All right, so get your
point taken.
You're still on base there. I don't even know if I can continue the podcast. All right, everyone, get your players ready. We're going to do the old 3, 2, 1, go. And
right.
we will join the sad party that is Solitary.
Can't wait for a sad party.
Here we go.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right.
There once was a man who sat on the beach, his heart filled with despair.
Indeed.
He didn't know what to do, so he longed for her without a care.
I'm not going to want you later.
Better hope a Shannon doesn't come along.
Yeah.
I'm playing sad right now.
That was totally a sad face.
Wow, that cable is going to be back.
What a slow play on that cable. Jesus.
Yeah.
We don't find out what that cable is for so long.
So long.
Oh, my God. I think I remember the big theory was that it was a power cable. And by the big theory, I mean like what I thought it was.
Yes, the internet was ablaze with what you thought it was.
Exactly.
Dr. Quinn, of all the doctors to call him.
That's a 90s reference.
He's a 19th century, medicine woman. And pensive.
Yeah, that was totally her pensive face.
Even if that accident was on purpose.
Yeah. Fine line.
He's a trained soldier. I mean, it's, you know, it's obviously perfect setup for this scene here.
Yeah. I like that, though. Nice carryover from the previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
They're all still in the same, like, place from the previous
exactly.
Oh, yes, I remember this. Oh, God.
Who sets up tripwire on an island?
Unfortunately, there's no one around to say that.
I love that stick in the leg. Like, it's bad enough I'm going to, you know, lasso you or whatever.
It's just totally unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be hanging upside down and you're going to have a stick in your leg.
Yeah. Well, it's great to, you know, cripple whoever you're capturing, but it's just like, it's just adding insult to injury.
It is.
Literally.
Literally, indeed.
Or injury to injury. Injury to insult.
An insulting injury.
So I would assume he had a knife and he could cut himself down, but somehow that just isn't what happened.
Yeah. I mean, if that happened, then this wouldn't happen.
Well, there you go. Something rustling in the jungle, number... This is... uh-oh.
Yeah, it totally was a wrestling.
I want you to look at their face, Saeed. I love that. Like, you know, they give us those POV shots that are mysterious. It's like, you know, he's looking at the person's face.
Yeah, he really should be. Who's this guy?
This is the hypochondriac guy.
What happened to him?
I think he,
Did he die in the arrow attack?
I think he dies before then. I
he dies
exactly
before
what it... Yeah, I don't think he's around that long, but I kind of forget. I think he'll make it off the island with the rest of these guys. That's what I think.
Okay.
Probably in season 2.
Right, of course.
In a Jorge Garcia-related comment, he's starring in a new show called Mr. Sunshine with Matthew Perry, playing a very Hurley-esque character.
Really?
If you can believe it. Well, the slow-witted guy. I guess, you know.
Oh, okay.
No, you know, he didn't win the lotto or anything.
I see. Man, that voice doesn't sound like Rousseau at all.
Who are these other people's voices? Why are there other people in the room saying the same thing? This is...
It's really weird.
He's from London. He speaks English. Come on. Could you tell by his box of fish and chips? Well, see, you know, that cable totally sets up this whole ability for her to be electrocuting him. Because we haven't seen electricity on the island yet.
That's true.
You know, and it seems to, you know, like it was going to, you know, it comes up like he got captured because he was going to find out where that cable led to.
Yeah, it does.
Which was sort of there, you know.
Yeah, you're right.
Which I guess makes sense to a place to trap somebody if, you know, they're near your home.
Yeah. But I think she's just running off batteries.
Oh, is that what we find out?
I think so.
That's right, it is batteries. So what's the cable about? Oh, that's right. That's what we think. It's a power station. It's not a power station.
Yeah. They never tell us where the power comes from, actually.
Mhm.
It's every time you think they're going to tell you, it's something else.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the part where they did the English switch.
Mhm. He starts out with speaking Arabic and then having the subtitles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very good. There's some sexual tension there, I think, with some of that dialogue.
See, this makes it seem like Saeed just had this natural talent for interrogation, and that caused him to work his way up the ranks. But that kind of conflicts with the later story that Kelvin taught him how to do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there's Ethan. Wow.
Boom.
Wow, he just shows up.
Don't mind me, I'm just another.
Nothing to see here. See, I feel like what's good about this, the hypochondriac guy, throwing him in there makes it less weird when Ethan just pops up.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's like, oh, it's just random survivors.
Mhm.
We're not necessarily suspicious that we haven't seen them before. And I think that continues, like, they're totally setting up the next episode.
Mhm. Well, they're setting up, the whole run with Ethan.
Yeah.
I was sleeping, not dead. I'm 3 feet away. You weren't whispering. Get to sleep, boy.
I can't ever tell if it's day or night in those caves.
But that's why I hate the cave.
Yeah, like, I feel like it's the middle of the day. Like why are they sleeping in the middle of the day?
They're in the cave. Their natural body rhythms are thrown off. So it's always dark. So we still don't know who this person is. We don't know who Rousseau is yet.
No, they're about to tell us.
They're still playing it out.
Exposition, just in case you missed it.
Whew, what a monologue. He's tired now.
She's never going to speak French again.
Whoa! She's the one who left the message?
Lost.
Right? This could have totally been the end of the episode.
Really good as the beginning. Wow.
You're one of the people who stole my baby 16 years ago, and now you're back and claiming to have heard my message, which, I mean, I don't know what her logic is here. I don't know.
Yeah.
I lose her train of thought, what she's supposed to be thinking.
Yeah. That was a great thing.
You know how they tell like kids not to wear like jerseys and shirts with their names on them, you know, because a stranger could just come up and say, "Hey, Bobby, what's up?" You know.
Yeah.
It just seems like one of those moments of that's a bad place to hang your something with your name on.
Right in view of the person you're interrogating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's thing number one. The others control the tower. They don't give a shit about the tower. What? Now you know my name?
What? We both like to have our names written down near us.
We could both improve on that.
Mm-hmm. Let me tell you a story about her.
If you please watch the flashback, you'll learn everything you need to know.
It all began in a hot day in Iraq. I was talking to my superior officer, and he gave me a file. I thought, put it an hour before lunch. This is the little Saeed who kills chickens for his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Girls are mean.
That's the subtext.
Yeah.
Were you listening?
So she's like, tell me more about Nadia. Like she really just saw that flashback story.
Yeah. Yeah, like he told her about that encounter.
Mm-hmm. Don't look at me for ideas. Think outside the box, Walt. Invest in a hobby like structural design. What? I have the only paper and pencil on the island?
Wow.
Lies. Your lies are lies.
Which should mean they're true, but it doesn't somehow. Yeah, she's just generally like obsessed with the fact that people lie all the time.
Yeah.
Which is so weird for someone who never encounters anyone.
I would say the only anchor to that would be the Robert thing. The somehow, tying that to this idea that, she knew, he wasn't who he said he was or something.
Okay.
And she had to kill him. Like, that's the only thing in terms of somebody really lying, like being traumatic or something that I can think of for her.
Yeah, I see. He did lie to her, that's true.
Like not being able to trust anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
After that, I could expect her to be relatively crazy.
Yeah. I mean, she definitely is supposed to be crazy, but she's really fixated on people lying.
Mm-hmm.
That really never goes away.
Show me what?
I think some of the stuff in that diagram isn't really necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that fountain that he drew, I don't think you guys need that fountain.
I think there are plants in there. Oh, this whole thing.
Woo!
Oh, God.
What a vista.
Wow.
No waiting, because nobody wants to play. He planned this speech.
Totally rehearsed.
Yeah, he knew there would be some opposition.
This is his live together, die alone.
Totally.
Yeah, there you go. Back on script.
Golf was the obvious answer. We need something fun everyone can do. How about golf?
Golf, yeah, that's... Everybody knows how to play golf.
Yeah. Alex Robert, how many men is she seeing?
I know, God, Rizzo.
I know she's French, but don't be a stereotype.
Wow.
Whatever that means.
I don't know what it means, but makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I need my hand. It's like that as a statement. Now, where are we supposed to think that she got this drug?
Oh, God, I don't even know. I didn't even think about it.
Mm-hmm. That's
what
they want.
Really, where did she get a lot of this stuff?
Well, the idea that she was part of this medical team makes sense. I guess she must have had some
it was part
supplies
of their
left over, I guess.
Okay.
I
don't think she had her Rousseau pack, so...
Exactly.
I guess that's where that came from, supposedly.
I love how close they make actors get for certain shots. See how far they are now from each other versus the previous shot? They were like 3 inches from each other before.
Yeah, that
was... No one stands that close together.
That was just unnecessary. But they didn't want to show us what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that guy. Oh, okay. He's there to sort of prove Hurley right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that's what this guy needs. He won't be a hypochondriac.
He's indicative of the sort of theme or the big problem of this episode, that they address is people are being stressed out.
Yeah.
So, like, hey, let's have a character that's having a physical problem with stress or whatever.
And then, like, he sees the golf and he instantly forgets about his problems.
Mm-hmm.
All those maps. God.
Because I don't want you to do any of that to me anymore.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to be nice to me? Because I've been torturing you? And you're on a sojourn because you tortured someone?
Oh, no.
Here it comes.
I'm afraid.
Listen up, folks. None of that Alex business right now.
Later. It was not night, I'm sorry.
Wasn't it night?
Nah, it was day. When Jin was there.
Yeah, I thought when they found Jin, and wasn't it raining? I thought it was at night when they rescued him out of the water.
Oh, was it? And then it was day later when they washed up?
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, I think it was night when they crashed.
All right, fair enough. 2 months? Jesus. Was it really that long? What did
It didn't
they do?
seem like 2 months.
No.
Because they went from hey Jin, do you know way off the island, and he lead him to the temple, and
yeah, they got attacked by the smoke monster like immediately.
Yeah.
With no direct continuity from crashing there.
I guess her trauma of being alone for 16 years is messing up her memory.
It must be it.
That's what Culture David would say.
Mhm. Oh, and the others are the carriers.
Oh man, she doesn't know the seeds of frustration she's sowing right now.
I know. And she's talking about the Black Rock, and now the Whispers. Oh,
so now
God.
she's lying. She said she hasn't seen anyone else.
Right.
But she's heard them whispering.
She's heard them whispering.
So this is like 4 or 5 huge pieces to the lost puzzle given by her in one speech, and some of which just turn out to be totally wrong.
Yeah, most of which turn out to be totally wrong, really.
Yeah.
Like, she did see them. They're not whispering. They're not the carriers.
Mhm. What did he say?
I missed it.
That wasn't important. They just went off on it.
Ends of scenes usually don't matter.
Yeah. So he didn't actually torture her, right? Like, he said he was going to, but he didn't, right?
I think he is supposed to have.
All right.
But they never show it.
Okay. Like, maybe he's just stalling and he didn't actually torture her yet.
Yeah, they don't really explain how it transitions to this.
Mhm.
This is kind of a leap.
So wasn't the last scene of this him saying, like, I will hurt you? She's like, I know.
Yeah. And now it's sometime later, and who knows what's happened in the meantime. He's been visiting her.
I get the sense he's been stalling. He's been, like, that whole thing about having the 2 other suspects. Like, he's hoping, he doesn't have to torture her yet. He can try to get it from them first.
Yeah, I guess that's the idea.
Well, if Jack's doing it, a doctor golfing. What? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, Kate's totally going now.
Bonehead, and his name is Boone.
Mhm. Oh wow.
Boonehead.
Never really put that together.
Mhm. That's just an obvious insult for her to call him like all of his life.
You're right. I always thought she just said that, but it does make sense. Shannon deserves more credit.
Well, let's not give her too much.
All right, sorry.
Is Kate an outcast?
I was gonna say Kate's not really an outcast, but you know,
like,
she was an outcast in the real life.
I mean, I remember when she said that, like originally, I saw that scene and she said that. I believed it, but
I did too. But
in context, I don't think she's really that much of an outcast.
No, at this point, I feel like she's pretty much a part of the group.
Yeah.
The only thing that kind of made her an outcast was them finding out she was the one the marshal was escorting.
Yeah, I think that's what they're referring to, as if that, is still a big deal these days.
Yeah.
Before I kill you. I can do awesome things with my feet. Snap your neck, perhaps.
What was that supposed to be?
A bear, apparently.
Okay, yeah. That's not Smoke Monster. So.
No. What a rational thing to say for someone so, lost in her own fantasy world.
Indeed. And who had a direct encounter with a monster.
Mhm.
Yeah, they tried to tie that together. Like, there's more later, because she's the one who says that the Smoke Monster is a security system that's guarding the island. And when they show her with Robert, they have her, say, that monster changed you. And then Robert says, it's not a monster, it's a security system,
Yeah.
That's supposed to somehow explain how she gets to that point. But, but why did he say it? I still don't really understand. Like, it feels like they're trying to tie it together. But, like, it doesn't, like, where is that idea coming from? Why would he even say that?
Because Smokey himself never claimed to want to protect the temple. So,
No.
I mean, that's not even his place. So I don't know why he would say it's a security system. That seems like just a retcon because they need because Rousseau says it before.
Yeah, she's going to say it before or later.
They need a reason for it makes sense if I mean, what's Robert supposed to be, right? I don't even know.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I mean, it makes sense if he's like a human guy who was, and encountered that situation, and it seems like, okay, Smokey was protecting that temple, but he's not a regular human guy, so he should be coming from a different place, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope you checked the firing pin.
But it was weird that she started out saying it was a monster. Now she's saying there's no such thing as monster. It's like she took what he said to heart so much that, like, she just thinks it's true now.
And I think it's hinting to the audience a bit that,
That's true.
It's not just it's not a monster just in an abstract sense.
That's true.
I should have went to golf school instead of medical school.
Kids don't like golf.
If it's not putt-putt, right?
Exactly. Boring. I hated golf.
If there's not a windmill on the golf course or hippopotamus or something.
Yeah. Some kind of thing where if you hit the ball in certain places, things happen.
Please.
That's
which is the opposite of golf.
Yes.
I love that. That's such a weird. Like, he says, "Hey, why don't you play?" And Walt's trying to be respectful. He's like, "No, other people have been waiting. I'll play later." And Michael goes, "No, I'll, have the moral authority to say it's fine for you to cut in front of them." And then Hurley goes, "No, it's your turn now, Michael," which is obvious for him to give to his son.
Like, here, Walt, you go for me, yeah. And he's like, "Nah, we'll play later."
And then he's like, "You're right, you play later. I'm gonna go play with you." It's so weird. I mean, it just makes him feel like a bad dad.
It does. Wow.
He did take that firing pin, did he? Oh, we won't find out yet.
Not yet. That was the cliffhanger.
He was like Iraqi stormtroopers.
I do think Michael is supposed to be kind of bad at being a dad. Like, he really doesn't know what he's doing. He's barely, spend any time with Walt at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a weird scene. I think it's kind of contrived to get Walt out of there.
Yeah, but you tied that back to the first scene with him telling Walt to find something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, here's Walt being interested in something to do, and Michael has a direct opportunity to. It's just so weird.
It is weird.
Which family? Oh, that's right. He's got a brother.
He's got family.
But we never see them, right?
Not really. We meet the brother a little bit, mostly in the afterlife, though.
Why that sentence can be said and it not be crazy is just,
Yeah. I really thought that later on when Michael pulls this same trick, they really missed out on a chance to have Sayid.
He says, yeah. Because they do have Sayid realize that Michael is up to something.
Yeah, he does. But they never tie it together.
Yeah, he doesn't piece it together with this whole trick.
Like, I've done this before. Like, he probably shot himself and let the other guy, and shot Anna Lucia and Libby.
I almost feel like if the audience hadn't seen Michael do it that way, then they might have had Sayid be the detective to figure it out. But
yeah,
it's like they showed it. So, but yeah, I agree. I think they missed the opportunity to make get those bonus points for that.
Yeah, tying the story together, making it feel like it makes sense. Oh no, classic moment.
That's not how you fire a gun.
Wow.
Ouch. I think that was totally not in her mind when she shot them.
Yeah, I really didn't see that way at all.
Because I think they're thinking it was more a real sickness at this point.
Yeah, I agree. It's more like a disease.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're talking about carriers and the thing spreading. And I think what they tell us later, like, if you have it, I don't know if you can give it to anyone else.
See, and here's another opportunity they missed because they don't find each other in the next life. And it's like, how do you set this whole love story up with that, powerful quote and not pay that off?
Yeah.
The love of his life becomes Shannon. Like, it does not work.
Yeah, they find each other in this life, but not the next one.
But he loses her shortly after he finds her in this life. So,
Yeah.
it's like still bittersweet.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been better. I think that deserved to happen more than bringing Shannon into that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, Shannon it doesn't fulfill anything for her to end up with Sayid.
Yeah.
So I think it just doesn't work, She could have been by herself or with Boone. I mean, really, Shannon and Boone are the ones whose relationship mattered the most.
Yeah, Boone
to each other.
wasn't with anybody.
Yeah, and it should have been Shannon and Boone being, happy brothers and sisters. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. That was the real thing that needed to happen.
And then bring Nadia in for Sayid. I mean, Nadia, and again, Nadia wasn't part of their group, so she doesn't get to come on this ride, but it sucks.
Yeah, the afterlife is so unfair.
It is. It's just like regular life. What's the point, then?
See, and here they set up this idea that, like, people might start getting sick, and I feel like that carries through a pretty long time. There's that whole thing with the stuff that Desmond's taken in the hatch, and he's talking about
even Ethan with Claire and the baby and the injection and all this stuff. And so when do we find out about the whole? When is the story about they took her with the smoke and all that stuff?
Maybe that's coming.
Okay. Just playing through like tall grass and weeds and
yeah, someone really needs to mow out there. Yeah, but they're all out here. Like, it's at this point, like, that one guy symbolized what happened to everybody.
Yeah.
And even Sawyer shows up.
What? I'm not welcome. The outcast to another. It's a great cut.
That was a weird transition.
Yeah,
wow.
From hitting a golf ball to a knife in a tree.
Lux is hanging out, throwing a knife in a tree.
Does he ever get to, like, use his knife throwing skills in some harrowing event?
Locke?
Yeah.
Probably the most notable thing is when he throws a knife into Naomi's back.
Naomi's back. That's the climax of this whole idea.
Yeah, but he also saves Juliet and Sawyer maybe from the others with the knife throwing.
Okay.
When they're time traveling.
You said it.
I did. It's weird that we can speak that way now.
Yeah.
Also, I guess we don't learn it in this episode.
Yeah,
interesting.
Later.
We find out Alex was her child, but we don't find out anything more about it.
Yeah. And here's the whispers they set up.
Yes. She talks about the whispers and it's like, oh, it's the others whispering. She was right. And they're carrying the disease and
Wow, that's how they end it.
That's how they end it. Yeah.
So they're really going all in on that other people on the island and they have a disease.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, what are we supposed to think in hindsight, having seen the whole show? That's supposed to be, if you believe Michael, that's the ghost whispering that we just heard.
Yeah. It's got nothing to do with the others whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or with the sickness.
That's just random ghost whispering.
Oh, that was another thing they tried to tie together because when Ben takes the baby, because Ben took the baby directly. He tells her so. If you hear the whispers, then run the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that, just like with Robert's line about the smoke monster being a security system, I feel like that was supposed to explain where she got the idea that the others were the whisperers.
Well, I mean, if that doesn't make you seem like it's them, I don't know what does.
Yeah. I still don't understand, like, again, just like with Robert, I don't know why Ben said that. He never talks about the whispers later. He never indicates he has a clue what they are. Like, it seems very strange that he just said that.
Well, see, there's two sort of modes of thought there with the whispers, of course, because there is the idea that the others, sort of do trek through the island sometimes, and might be making noises in the distance.
So if you hear whispers, lowercase w, and it just so happens there's these other supernatural whispers.
I think there's some retconning going on here with Ben saying the way he says it, but I think, and the way the sort of misappropriation of the ownership of the whispers that occurs.
Yeah.
But I think that's what they're trying to get at is he should be trying to say, if you hear me or my people, don't come near us.
Yeah.
But the whispers that we know are the other supernatural ones, and so it makes it seem like, it gives her a reason to think all whispers are his people.
Right.
Right. So, she's just wrong about that.
Now, I feel like there was an intention at one time to make the whispers the others. I feel like there's a lot of signs pointing in that
exactly.
direction.
That's what I'm saying. That's the idea that they, when who was it, Echo and Jen or somebody are hiding from this idea that they you might run into them through the jungle.
And there's numerous others attacks where the whispers come right before.
Exactly, yeah, that they are just whispering right outside of, right near earshot.
Yeah, and even up to the beginning of season 6 when they're kidnapped and taken to the temple, we hear whispers right before that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're getting ready to reveal what the whispers really are, and they're still hinting that it's the others.
Yeah, it just seems like for the ghosts on the island, this must be like the best reality show ever.
Oh, yeah.
They can just show up and watch firsthand events and just whisper to each other about who's doing what. And
I think my best, shot in the dark at what the story is supposed to be is that...
Oh, you don't want to take a shot in the dark. That's dangerous.
To. That's all I can do. I have no lights. And I want to explain things. I think all I can say is that they're sort of warning of danger, and usually the others' attacks are potentially dangerous, and it just so happens that that's But we also hear whispers, before a few Smokey attacks, and there's other times where you hear the whispers. So I think because when Michael shows up, he's warning Hurley not to do something dangerous, and so I feel like that's sort of supposed to be the idea there.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes sense if the idea that the ghosts on the island would show up in extreme circumstances or dangerous situations, especially for those sort of lured to the island, and it would make sense that if you died on the island, because of Jacob's nonsense. Then
you mean his grand plan for the goodness of humanity by nonsense?
Yeah, his master plan to keep the human race going, I guess, aka nonsense. It would make sense that they would show up when Smokey's going to do something, or if they had been attacked by Smokey and died or something, or but it wasn't very coherent, and of course they never really do anything but whisper because they can't just show up and sort of talk directly, but unless you're Hurley, and so it didn't come off as coherent as that. I mean, obviously it got muddled in other, it being the others and it being just other stuff going on with the Whispers. But
yeah,
you see how like the first bit of plot for the big mysteries on Lost, how did Rousseau get there and what other people might have been there and who's there now and this whole new thing about the sickness. It's starting messy.
Yeah.
But I mean, starting with her being wrong about the facts. And I just got to say, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, yeah.
When the basis for judging what's going to happen with these storylines is wrong. Like, her facts are wrong, and and not only wrong from perspective, but wrong in terms of course, what they do later with certain things, and I never saw the others except for Ben, who I talked to.
Right.
So it's just like she's wrong in so many different ways.
Yeah.
It's weird to see that, like, season one up until this point, doesn't really obviously have any of that problem because they're dealing with mostly character stuff.
Right.
But this episode, as good as it is, it's starting that trend of just like the mysteries and the intricacies of the details getting, being really muddled and crappy.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I realized that even though Rousseau per se is not the biggest thing in the story of Lost, this episode does introduce a ton of ideas that are pretty big.
Yeah,
in terms of
huge
Lost.
ideas. Yeah.
Including the others, the Whispers, the Smoke Monster, the Sickness, all that stuff.
And I think that's really what the last scene is, with Saeed trekking back by himself and hearing the Whispers, is it's like, it's validating what she said.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, she could have said all that, and you believe her anyway, but having that scene says, oh, here's Whispers we've never heard before. She's right, like, at least about that.
Right. Right, exactly.
So yeah, it definitely opens up the world, and it says, wow, we really don't know what's going on this island.
Yeah. 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 And there's I mean, so we meet the French woman from the Signal, but there's also other people besides that who are there. And, the next episode's going to deal with that more directly.
And we still, I don't know, maybe we were talking and I missed it, but she didn't get into the Smoke Monster and Montan losing his arm and all that stuff, right?
No, I think she doesn't talk about Montan losing his arm until later when they're checking to the Black Rock.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
That's a weird thing about watching these old episodes. Like, you don't really remember what order they tell you things. Like, we know the whole story, but, like, they only tell us part of it here.
Yeah, little bits and pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you said, like, it starts off wrong in the sense of where they eventually went with the show. I'm not totally convinced that when they wrote this episode, they intended her to be so wrong about everything. I feel like the audience, we didn't have much to go on but what she was saying for a long time. It really, I would say it wasn't until they kind of flat out told us what really happened, that we could actually.
Oh yeah, I mean, until that episode, there was all we had for her backstory was what she said. Like,
yeah.
And who knew we'd have a main character time travel to give us a first-hand account of what happened. Couldn't have predicted that one.
Yeah, like at this stage in the show, that seems so preposterous. Like, someone's going to time travel.
I can't wait till a couple episodes from now when Rousseau shows up at the beach and she sees Jin and goes, "Hey, you were the guy who came in, right, when you disappeared, and you were there too, right?" Because that's going to happen, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I wish they could have done. I mean, that's the kind of thing if.
Well, you can't even do that because you're ruining future storylines by dropping that kind of bomb by saying, if she. I mean, you. That's what's weird is like you want that to be true, but that's the nature of storytelling. Where if you just even if they knew they were going to do that for her backstory and for Jin's backstory, tie them together basically in a sense.
Right.
Even if they knew they were going to do that. You change the story you're telling by saying at some future date there's going to be time travel and this character is going to be back there and whatever, and then that's whether or not you address it at that point, you still have that big overarching mystery. So it's like You
Yeah,
know, there's so that's what's weird about it. But but they don't have a good explanation for why that never happens. You know.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I feel like if Lost were a rich tapestry that all like tied together nicely. I mean, you're right. It's too early to say, hey, I saw you from future you that was time travel. Like if they told us that at this point, I think everybody's brain explodes instantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. You're not ready for that.
But at the same time, they could have done something smaller, like had her look at Jin and like seem to maybe recognize him or something, but not actually have her say anything, not actually take it further than that. Give us a hint that that's coming without telling us. So that when we look back, we can say, "Oh, look, she's looking at Jin strangely this one time." That'd be cool. That's the kind of thing I wish they had done, but obviously, when they wrote that earlier stuff with Rousseau, I don't think they had a clue that Jin.
Well, what's funny is, maybe 10 or 20 years from now, if they ever want to re-release Lost, they could really just edit some footage in of like Rousseau, like one shot of Rousseau staring and one shot of Jin and one shot of Rousseau staring and one shot of Jin in that episode, and just that'll be it,
Yeah. Because I'll buy. I mean, it has been 16 years. She's living in the jungle alone. She is insane. I'll buy that she doesn't instantly recognize him and say, but like vaguely familiar. Just some kind of suggestion that that really did happen. That at this point in the show, we're really supposed to believe that she's already encountered Jin. As has, just for another example of that kind of weirdness, Ethan has already encountered Locke.
Yeah, and he's talking to him in that scene. He should be like, "Aren't you the guy I shot?" Like,
who said you were our leader? Like, yeah, like that's, I mean, I don't believe that that's really in his mind at this point.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the writing.
If he was, he would have told Ben.
Yeah.
And Ben would have already known that Locke is a threat, and he doesn't sort of know that yet.
Right.
So that's what's weird is, oh my God, my head's about to explode. so Ben gets threatened by Locke that Locke is more connected to the island, and sort of might take over his job or something someday, and that actually ends up happening.
Yeah.
Like he was worried about that happening, and it did.
Yeah.
But not for the same reasons. It kind of happened for other reasons.
No, and I feel like it's kind of circular. Like Locke becomes the leader because he became the leader, and then he time traveled to tell everybody he was supposed to be the leader. And then that made it look like he was some great, amazing figure who should be the leader because he was time traveling. But like that's the only reason he was the leader to begin with.
And doesn't it seem like the sort of Ben of the, I guess, 80s or 90s, the sort of pre-Purge Ben, or what, before Ben's in charge, or, during that era, it didn't seem like anyone ever told him about Locke.
No.
Like, hey, this guy who was one of our, who time traveled back in the 50s and said he's our leader in the future. Like,
yeah,
you might want to look out for him.
Yeah,
because you won't be the leader forever because this guy time traveled and said he was the leader at some point in the future. So
right. There is that idea that the others are expecting Locke, and there's the Richard stuff. Like he visited Locke. I mean, he's visiting Locke when he's like 7 years old, giving him the leader test, and it's like, so he's already like trying to make him the leader, like. Or trying to see if he's going to be the leader, like that's that's before.
And of course that's just because Locke said, "Hey, come visit me."
Yeah.
And it seemed like it made Richard, obviously, be interested in trying to figure out at what point is this guy our leader,
Right.
At what point is he displaying whatever capabilities that sets him apart or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like he becomes a leader because he said it in the past while time traveling.
Well, that's the power of time travel, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I even want to say that's, Widmore talks about that. He's amazed that when Locke comes back to the real world, like, and Locke's like, oh, it was just 4 days ago that I saw you in the 50s, and for Widmore it's been like, 50 years, whatever, something like that. And he's talking about how special Locke is, and I feel like he just thinks that because Locke was time traveling. And
he has no idea that Widmore has no idea that his greatest enemy is responsible for this display of this miraculous display of whatever. It's just weird. It's insane that he's and that's I guess is the moral there, kids, is don't look a miracle in the mouth or something. I don't know. Like he's misattributing who's responsible for the miracle or something, or what it means. That he's time traveling. So
right. The others carry along that idea, and I feel like we're supposed to believe that, like, once he shows up in the island, it's like, yes, this, the promised one has come finally, and that's how they treat him, and that's why Ben's threatened and all that. But like,
it makes it seem like something like with the Bible. It's like the guy who's writing the end of the Bible says Jesus is going to come back, and Jesus is like, I never said I was coming back. Wait a minute. Now I got to come back. I didn't say that.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I don't know. It never really. It's weird that the others are, so enraptured by this thing that happens that is so anti their deity.
It's I mean, it would have all worked out if Jacob was behind it.
Yeah.
If he, it would have made sense that Locke, that they revere Locke as someone who's special. If Jacob's responsible for the time traveling and that whole plan, but he wasn't.
Right.
His nemesis was.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And none of those others ever realized that. Right. Like none of them really understood that. Like even the ones that during sundown who decided to go with Locke, they don't even know. Yeah, they don't even.
Even after he kills Jacob, they're still following him.
They're still,
They're ridiculous. It's like if I were Jacob, I'd be so frustrated with them.
Well, I think that's the problem with having whatever sort of religion or whatever you would call that group.
A cult sort of.
Based on having a cult with no ideology, basically.
Yeah.
Other than protect the island. I think that's a problem when somebody kills your leader and it's like, I don't know, is that bad that he killed our leader? I don't know.
Yeah.
They have really nothing to believe in other than Jacob,
Right.
And so it's weird when, things change and it's just like they don't know what to do. They just need to survive. They don't really care. They kind of don't even really care,
Yeah. And I wonder, did Richard ever talk to Jacob about that? Did they ever talk about Locke at all? How aware was Jacob even of the time traveling? Did he? Who knows? I don't even know how much he knew about that stuff.
Yeah.
They never really made it clear at all. And so the fact that they were expecting Locke as a leader and as a special person totally plays into the Man in Black's plan. He explicitly exploits that.
And
by
I think
showing up as Locke and acting as the leader.
And I think they kind of missed an opportunity with Jacob to recognize that Man in Black took Locke's form of all people.
Yeah.
I mean, Jacob was so hands-off, he just didn't even care about people he, could have cared about.
Yeah, he doesn't even acknowledge that he looks like Locke.
Yeah, I think I just feel like they missed something for him to acknowledge that it was the loophole had to do with Locke specifically.
Yeah.
This person who, more than anybody else of the Losties, more than anybody else we've seen on the show, I would dare say, was ready to just follow the will of the island.
Yes.
And protect it at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, bad deity on Jacob for not shepherding Locke, of course, during his trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
I just got to start pulling out all the biblical terminology now, I guess.
Why not?
When he was given his Sermon on the Mount, no.
Instead of letting him get shepherded by Christian Shepherd.
Exactly. Oh, jeez. I'm sure that wasn't planned.
It's really amazing how, I mean, I guess the idea again is his whole hands-off approach, but how much destruction that leads to. You know, like essentially everyone on the island except for a very select few are dead by the end of the series. As a direct result of Jacob's, in non-intervention policy.
I'd love to see the scene after Jacob is killed and he goes to the afterlife and Mother is there and he tells her what he did and she's like, "You did what?" You know, like you thought being hands off was gonna at least do something good. You know, like name me something where being hands off is the best course of action. You know.
Yeah.
You won't find many things. That should have been the epilogue. Yeah.
You did what?
If you weren't dead, I'd kill you.
Worst protector ever.
I should have left your brother in charge. At least he wasn't an idiot.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, like Man in Black totally exploits the fact that Jacob's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Like he severely exploits it to such an extent that like I feel like Jacob has to get involved at some point, like, and just say enough already.
Yeah.
Like you're leading the entire island by the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Like I really need to step in. I mean, that was the whole point with him and Richard. Like, you know, Richard makes the point that if you don't step in, he's going to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then that's supposed to be Richard's job, but Richard gets pulled into the whole Man in Black plan as well.
See, that's what's weird. Is Jacob is trying to have the game have a certain set of rules, and he wants the game to be, I'll be hands-off, and Man in Black will be hands-off, and we'll see what the humans do, and then that'll prove either one of us right or wrong.
Yeah.
But then, of course, it's like, okay, well, no, Man in Black is a.k.a. Evil Incarnate. He's going to intervene not only because of his interest in this wager, but he has personal interest in getting off the island.
Right.
So then Jacob should have said, okay, well, if the whole point of this game is to say people are capable of good and, you know, and when they're not swayed by evil, they're good, it seems like he should have been like, okay, well, I need to get into the ring to balance this out. I need to be, you know, guiding people and circumventing and counteracting Man in Black's influences to sort of keep the test equal, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have made some sort of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
You know, but he doesn't do that. He says, "No, I'll be hands off and let the bad guy, you know, exploit it." I mean,
the bad guy who has supernatural powers.
Well, not only that, not only does he have supernatural powers, and he's been on the island a long time, and all this, you know, he's got all these advantages. But the biggest advantage, of course, one of the biggest advantages is that they're in a hostile environment,
right?
With strangers. You know, if the island was like this paradise and they didn't have to worry about food and shelter and resources, and, you know, it would be a different game. It'd be a different wager. You know, but they're put sort of in hell, away from their, you know, comfort zone, their surroundings and all this stuff. And it's just like, you want to prove that people will do the right thing in this environment and you don't want to get involved?
Yeah.
You don't want to win then. You know, like, you're just not serious about winning.
Right.
Because that game is just, you know, he's not going to win that way.
Right. Right.
And I don't think does he win? Does he get his point proven in the game?
Who knows?
Is Jack supposed to have validated this whole ordeal? Like, I mean, that we should have some answer to that by the end of the show.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. I wish they had made that clearer. And honestly, it seemed to me like Man in Black could give a shit about the bet and the.
He didn't care anymore.
The whole,
I don't know if he ever cared.
Yeah, it made me wonder if he ever cared. Like, he might have believed that people were bad, but how invested was he in that whole argument with Jacob? It seemed to me that he could give a shit. He just wanted to leave. Like, incidentally, people are bad, but I just want to get off the island.
Yeah.
Whereas Jacob seemed to think it was all about, like that was his main goal. I'm going to prove him wrong. And he doesn't care. Like, what good is it to prove him wrong if he doesn't care? I mean,
yeah.
Like, what's going to happen? He can say, okay, Jacob, you're right. I still want to leave. I still want to kill you. It's ridiculous. And I agree. It should have been tied together better. There should have been some conclusion about, and this shows that Jacob was right. I mean, that sounds cheesy, but something like that. Because as it is, it's just hanging there.
Yeah.
It's just this general idea that's supposed to be like an overall theme of the show, but it never really comes together. And that's weird.
It almost should be something like, the fact that he was able to transfer power over to Jack should be proving his point. Like, it almost should be something like, the scenario should be something like, he can only prove his point by finding someone to take his place.
Yeah.
Like he's got to wait forever. I mean, that's kind of what they obviously this it's a little askew from what they're doing, but it's in the same ballpark. But they could have been a little bit more specific with that. But it's a bad plan that unfortunately wasn't changed. It's so weird to have Jacob just. And it's like they have to answer, why are people coming to the island? Okay, he's coming to the island because of this bet thing.
Yeah.
And they're coming to the island because he's got to find someone to take over.
Right.
But the second part, the taking over part, is really about keeping Man in Black from leaving.
Right.
Not proving the bet necessarily.
Yeah.
So it gets a little sort of mired in confusion that they're kind of sort of the same answers answering two different parts of the story there.
Standard Lost.
Yeah, right? No one's surprised.
There's two questions and one answer that doesn't really answer either one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, who's on first?
Exactly. Yeah,
And it's like, Dharma's on the island, and they're doing all kinds of crazy experiments. Did Jacob ever wonder maybe they might blow up the world by whatever they're doing? Like, he never seemed concerned about what they were really up to, or that they might blow up the island at least, which might set Man in Black free or something. Like,
Right.
I mean, that to me is just, what are you going to do?
He has no role at all to play in Dharma. I feel like we should be able to answer the question, did he bring the Dharma people to the island? And you can't. Who knows? They told us that Dharma had their own instruments to find the island, so that suggests that he didn't. But on the other hand, the way he brought people there was so, nebulous. Maybe somehow he really did bring them there, quote unquote, even though they found it with their instruments. He was somehow directing them, in that vague sense that he, draws people to the island. And, they never specified how he does that.
Yeah, well, you mean the lighthouse was shining on them?
Yeah, the lighthouse was shining on them. Exactly. Did he want them there, or did he, were they interlopers that he didn't want there? I mean, the others eventually killed them all.
I gotta say, it's the latter. Like, I want to say he didn't want them there, but I want to be more specific and say he didn't really care either way, because you look at the history of people who came to the island, like the Army was there in the 50s doing nuclear tests. I don't think he brought them there. It just seemed like people would show up on the island,
But I guess part of his job description is protecting the island, and, non-intervention's only going to get you so far with that job.
Well, and that's what's weird is, like, he somehow bequeaths the responsibilities of that job to the others.
Yeah.
You know, but he doesn't tell them, like, who's a good person, besides the list stuff, whatever that's about.
Oh, God.
You know, but
right.
he doesn't really sort of daily, you know, say, okay, well, Dharma's okay now, or they're not okay.
And he doesn't specify the people that he actually wants to be on the island versus the people who are just there doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means the others are just going to attack everybody.
And it's like he's so indifferent to Ben for all these years, and Ben is just this, you know, tyrant running the show.
Yes.
Who could and does and tries to kill the people he wants to be his Jacob's successors. So
yeah, exactly.
It's pretty crazy. It's like, that's your plan?
And eventually Jacob himself. Because, you know, partially because of that, not, you know, ignoring him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if he could have just paid Ben a visit or two, you know, even with all of Man in Black's machinations, he might have still averted that whole crisis.
Uh-huh.
You know, just that simple thing of saying a word or two to Ben. Simple as that. Why is that so hard? He could talk to Richard. Why not talk to Ben?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Ben makes the point when they're there that, like, Locke gets led straight to Jacob. No questions asked, really. And that, again, is playing into the idea that Locke was really considered special and somehow had privileges above Ben, even though Ben was the leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because at that point they didn't know who Locke really was. They thought it was actually Locke. You know, and so that suggests that it wasn't the fact that Jacob didn't intervene or something. He, you know, if they thought Ben was special enough or something, he could have gone to see Jacob.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's right. You know, they make it seem like, you know, the way Locke insists to see, you know, with a different circumstance though. It seems like, you know, but when Locke is, you know, Man in Black appearing as Locke is demanding to see Jacob, like it's sort of a different circumstance with sort of the others in disarray and all that stuff, and they sort of need answers, you know, then versus sort of when Ben was in charge during the sort of status quo era of the others, when, like, you know, they were, you know, the others weren't really demanding any, you know, these sort of big answers about who to follow and what to do.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess Ben was being appeased by, I don't know what, when he wants to see Jacob. Somehow he was getting appeased, you know, I guess going to the cabin. I don't really know what he was doing. But,
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I mean, I think you're right to the extent, you know, that it seemed like they definitely Locke being sort of, it seemed more special than Ben.
Yeah. Yeah, or at least they thought that. I mean, I don't know if he really was, but it was certainly believed that way. And I guess what I'm saying is there was no reason why Jacob couldn't talk to Ben, you know, if he you know, could deem him worthy or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and at the very least just say, you know, hey, like, lay off on the mass murder or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, is it really so bad for him to say that? I guess, like, that's against his whole...
Look, that's the only, I mean, yeah, I mean, and I would go a step further and say, if they want to tell us that, you know, that Ben is, you know, subject to the same rules as everyone else about Jacob being hands-off and wanting to see what people do under their own free will.
Yeah.
Even if it's his sort of, you know, follower.
But I feel like there's a huge tension between that and having these others as your island protectors. I mean, if you're just going to let them do whatever they want, they're not necessarily going to fulfill that role very well.
Well, see, now, here's the thing. Like, don't the others just sort of organically happen and they sort of decide for themselves that they're going to protect the island? Because it seems like Jacob hires Richard, and he says, hey, your job is to, you know, when people come to the island to, you know, I guess it's supposed to be to not let them be, you know, sort of not claimed, but, you know, convinced by Smokey to do anything crazy.
Right.
So it seems like this whole idea of the others and that religion sort of starting up just that's not what Jacob wanted. You know, he didn't. Correct me if I'm wrong. Just from what I'm remembering, it didn't seem like he wanted a group of people to protect the island. That's just kind of what happened.
Yeah, no, I didn't get the sense that he wanted to be worshipped. It does seem like it was just as simple as it was. Richard was going to be a kind of emissary to just to make sure that there was not complete free reign for Man in Black to lead them however he wanted.
Yeah, and I mean it's a natural, I think, conclusion to something like that with this mystical, powerful guy on the island, Jacob, making his emissary, ageless.
Yeah.
That's going to start something like a cult. If you tell people there's a bad guy on the island you shouldn't listen to, and there's a good guy on the island you should listen to.
Right, and he's the reason I'm immortal, and they can see that it's true.
And they can see that it's true. You do that for a couple hundred years, and you're going to get some people to follow you.
Yeah, I think that is how that worked, and it does make sense. I agree.
Yeah, and it's just like Jacob didn't realize that would happen, and so all of a sudden, a couple centuries later, he's got a group of people who are doing things in his name.
But I think, at a certain point, I mean, the others are being led by Man in Black. It's time to step in and tell Richard something to stop that.
And that's the thing. I mean, it seems like Jacob doesn't know Man in Black is looking like Locke and leading the others until he shows up.
Yeah, no, I agree. He didn't really. I mean, it was weird because he seemed totally prepared, and at the same time to have no idea it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Because, he gets Alana's crew together. They're the ones bringing Locke's body, and he's got his candidates ready to go. He knows he might die. It really comes across like he's expecting it, but at the same time, totally blindsided.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is weird.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like he's blindsided for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Like, he should be blindsided that it's Locke.
Yes.
Not that, you got your loophole. Well, I mean, that's a big deal, but...
Yeah.
Whatever the loophole is, right?
I know. That was going into season 6. I was sure we were going to find out what the loophole was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm amazed that we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're left with, either the loophole being something really lame, like he just needed to convince someone else to kill Jacob for him, or the loophole some more convoluted, crazy thing involving time traveling and specifically becoming Locke and being the leader of the others and, a larger, crazier thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then, why did he need to do all that exactly to kill Jacob? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, exactly. It's like, and what does it mean that Ben is, you can have a weird version of those two explanations and say, well, what does it mean that Ben is the one who was a former leader, killed Jacob, and Man in Black is now sort of the leader, whatever that means, it almost, it kind of shouldn't matter who the leader is, because that only means, that only has to do with, belief or something, right? Somehow the others give power to who their leader is or something.
I feel like they all just kind of agree that someone is their leader.
Yeah, and that somehow gives them the ability to kill Jacob or not kill. That's just weird. I don't want to think that that's true. So I almost feel like it shouldn't matter who the leader is, but it seems like it does. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's very strange to specifically set up the idea of a loop, make it actually the bookend of a whole finale episode. One day I'm going to find my loophole. I see you found your loophole. How do you never say what the loophole is?
See, okay, that's the thing. The loophole needs to be him getting off the island, not killing Jacob. The loophole, well, and I guess those are connected, right?
Yeah.
Get the island, kill Jacob. Which is, again, why this is weird. So
the original mention of the loophole was in the context of killing Jacob. That's when he brought it up. Because, in season 5, we don't even know that he wants to leave the island yet.
But that's what's weird is we should be able to agree that he can't leave the island in smoky form, right? So he's gotta be able. So if he wants to leave the island, which is the reason he wants to kill Jacob, right?
Yeah.
Like he wants to kill him so he can leave. And if he's leaving, he's got to have a body.
Right.
Right. And so it seems like the loophole needs to involve him getting a body.
Okay.
And I think it's less about him leading the others because I think he found a body, which was the main thing I think he needed, and he used that, and having that body let him do two other things. One is be the leader of the others, which he could, kill at will because he doesn't want anyone else alive on the island.
Right.
And two, it allows him to convince somebody else to kill Jacob for him.
Yeah.
Which maybe he couldn't have done himself. So, maybe he just physically couldn't have done it for some reason because of the whole mother saying you can't hurt each other thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about him getting a body and picking the right body to let him do these other things he wants to do. And so the loophole is really about him getting a body to get off the island, and then the sort of extra stuff he gets to do is the fact that he picked the right body. He gets to kill Jacob, which he needs to do to leave anyway.
Right.
And he gets to, have an easy way to control, the largest group of sort of, people on the island who, he doesn't like anyway.
Right.
But I guess he doesn't really, I guess they just leave, right? Like, what happens to the remaining others?
Don't ask.
Like, wasn't there a group that split off earlier in season 6 or something, and they were supposed to have gone somewhere else?
Pretty much. I mean, it's left ambiguous at the end, but like all the others go to the temple, and then some of them choose to go follow Locke. The rest of them die at the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ones who follow Locke, eventually, some of them die in the attack by Widmore.
Okay, that's right, yeah.
And the rest of them, fate unknown, because they don't really show them again.
Okay.
You don't really see what happens to all of them. But presumably most of them are dead by the end of the show. For various reasons.
So that's kind of, I think, how I picture the whole loophole nonsense.
And Locke didn't really, Man in Black, didn't really care about the others at all. I mean, he just used them for, to further his own goals, but he had no interest in actually leading them.
Mm-hmm.
Because, once they were, he never even talks about them again once they disappear from the scene, because he's on to the next thing. So, I feel like he only even got them because he wanted to clear out the temple. He didn't want the candidates to bunker in there.
Yeah.
But I think the problem, with your theory, which sounds nice and I want to believe it, is Apaterno.
Well, don't find a problem with it.
Is Apaterno, where I feel like they show us, his first attempt to kill Jacob, and he appears to Richard in regular Man in Black form and just says, gives him a knife and says, go kill him, and I wish, there's no indication exactly for why he fails other than Jacob fights him off. He just has good hand-to-hand combat. There's no indication that Richard wouldn't have succeeded if he could have got a stab in.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes it come off like, and Jacob even says, you tried to kill me. It comes off like Richard could have succeeded. Like, he didn't need to do anything more than tell someone to go kill Jacob.
Yeah. So wait, what does that have to do with my theory? Why is my theory wrong?
Well, you were saying that it tied, that he also needed to take on someone else's body because of the the rule that he's not supposed to hurt Jacob and stuff like that.
Well, no, I'm saying he's got to have a body to get off the island. That's just what I think is true. I don't necessarily know if that's true. I feel like if in this,
I thought you were tying that into killing Jacob and the rule as well. I thought.
Well, I was saying, yeah. It is tied together, right? I think to leave the island, you got to have two pieces. Jacob has to be dead,
Right.
There can't be this force that wants to keep you on the island, basically.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have a body. It just seems like this, and maybe that's just not true. I don't know what Carlton Damon would say about that. Maybe he would have just looked like Man in Black if he would have killed, like, so in Abaturno, if Richard had killed Jacob, and if somehow Man in Black was able to sail off the island, he would just look like Titus.
Yeah.
And just sail off maybe. But I feel like since he is really a smoke monster, and when he looks like Titus, he's really just appearing that way. It seems like he would need some sort of physical body to for part of the plan. So that's why I think the loophole is it starts weird, because I think there's two pieces to it.
I see.
But I think the main piece is getting a body to get off the island.
Okay.
But you can't get off without killing Jacob. So that's the other. So they're linked.
Okay. So the body is Locke's body. Is that what
the
you're
body
saying?
is Locke's body? Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And I think my point was that he presumably could have picked any body.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Why not his own? I mean, his own body's on the island too.
That's my point. Is he found a body to pick that let him do the other stuff he wanted to do.
Okay.
Which was, be the leader of sort of the biggest group. He can control the biggest group of people on the island by being the leader. The others are the biggest group by this point. Well, probably all the time.
Yeah.
And so he gets to control them and do whatever he wants to do, but he also gets to, manipulate and convince Ben into, killing Jacob. So
yeah,
I feel like he could have picked another body, but it would have been less advantageous.
He wouldn't. Yeah, his plan wouldn't have. I mean, I think he planned all along to be Locke. Like that's.
Yeah, I think that was part of it to be in control of the others and to find what. I don't want to believe he planned the Flash, the time travel stuff specifically. I mean, Christian is the one who told him to turn away and blah blah. But I just don't know how he would have known it would have gotten stuck, and that it would have just happened to have gotten stuck in the past long enough for Locke to set this thing up. That part to me seems like kismet or something.
Yeah,
but,
I wish they had tied that together, because I feel like some of the pieces are there. Like first of all, the fact that he tells him to turn the wheel. Second of all, the fact that the Man in Black was the one who built the wheel. He should have some idea how it works. Like he might actually know what it would lead to. Third, he was on the island that whole time, so he may have had some awareness. And they even showed with the Locke thing, where he has Richard go talk to the past Locke and tell him he has to die. He has some awareness of the time traveling that's occurring. So. All those pieces, put them together, there should be some kind of sense of his plan being that happening, but it never really comes together. They never really make that actually true.
Yeah.
It's more like it just happened to work it out in his favor.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It just seems like, well, he got lucky that, when Locke turned the wheel, or when Ben turned the wheel, it got stuck, and the people who were left on the island, start to time flash, and Locke, But I mean, I guess he does set that up though, right? With the whole. So I mean, that's what's weird is how do you set that up?
He's responsible for all of the parts of that. It's just that it's not clear how he would have known that would have happened, or that was going to happen.
Because this was weird about time travel. It's like, well, when do you see the effects, right? I mean, for Ethan, sort of he supposedly stumbles out of the jungle, and there's Locke from the future,
right?
And so it's like, how does Man in Black know about this instance? Because that's when he basically tells Richard to go help him out. Yeah. So how does he know about that before that future time point when he sets up Locke going to the past?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part's weird. So what's the loophole? I don't think we clarified. But okay, so yeah, no, we were talking about that, just that part of.
I feel like the loophole is like a perfect symbol for Lost as a show. Like it's this thing that should be this grand, intricate, amazing piece of machinery that we can stand back and admire and say, oh wow, that was beautifully done. Wow, that plan just did us all. We were all fooled, and. But you look at it and it's like it doesn't really work at all. It's just a big mess of stuff that seems like it should do something, but somehow doesn't.
Mhm.
I wish there was more to it than that. I mean, at that point in the show, I feel like there should have been clear ideas about what the loophole was.
Yeah. Yeah, I see you found your loophole.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
I know. Such an obscure remark. And he says it right in front of Ben. Ben could have brought it up later. Something. I wish that's the other thing that's frustrating about Lost. A lot of times it feels like they don't take the easy points. Like there's certain things where it wouldn't even take much work to make it come together, and they just don't do it. And that's one of the things. I feel like they could have at least made the loophole better with just a few lines later. And they just never did that. They could have had Man in Black himself say something. They could have had Ben ask him about it later. Anything.
Yeah. No, they didn't.
Just like with the cabin, just like with the temple attack. I mean, all the things that never really made sense. They could have.
They never took time to explain them. That's why they didn't make sense.
Well, exactly. Exactly.
Funny how that works.
But I guess the point is, like, it wouldn't have taken much time. Like, it wouldn't have been that hard. And now I have to read the encyclopedia for it to explain to me what happened on the show.
Oh.
And it's like I feel that I shouldn't have to do that. I mean, I do it because I want to know what was in their minds, because it's totally unclear just from watching the show. But, it really shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah. Because
most of the time, like when it's a story they care about, they're very clear about what's going on and why. They go the extra mile with exposition in most cases. It's just weird with those little points that they just totally drop the ball.
Yeah, it's almost like they think they made it clear, but they don't know that they didn't or something.
Yeah. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I guess, with they know their own show, and maybe they did just get lost in, like, how much was coming across. But
yeah.
I feel like as writers, that's part of their job, to have a sense of how well what you think the story is actually coming across to an audience that doesn't know the story.
That is, yeah. That's definitely part of the challenge, is to parse what's coming off versus what you know, and the subtext of what you know versus what's actually coming through.
Yeah.
Because, if you just take the scene of Man in Black showing up as Locke in Jacob's, house, his foot house, with Ben, and Jacob saying, I see you found your loophole, like, Occam's razor answer should be, just him being in a different body.
Yeah.
Because that's the most extraordinary thing that's happening at that point.
Yeah.
His brother, who he grew up with and killed and made him be a smoke monster, now has a different body. I mean, in that scene, that should be what he's talking about, because he hasn't seen him in that body before, And
I feel like his follow-up line, indeed I did, and you have no idea what I've been through to be here.
That should definitely tie into all the time travel stuff and all the, like, him setting up Locke to be the leader. Like, that should be what he's talking about for that.
Exactly. It should be more than a dead guy showed up who was convenient for me to imitate. By luck. Like, it's him saying that says to me he was behind it. He did a lot of work to make this happen.
Yeah, and what's weird, the scene when Locke is, is taking Richard to go, help Locke from the past with the bullet wound. If he doesn't do, he's already leader of the others because of everything that's happened in the past.
Right.
But if he doesn't go and make Richard do this and do the whole thing with the compass, that it won't happen.
Right.
That's what's weird about the time travel. If he doesn't go do that right then he won't become the leader, and sort of the stuff that has happened won't happen. And so it's weird to sort of to have to fulfill that part of that time loop.
You're right. Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's where he gets the compass, and that's
where
the thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the big.
Oh,
that's where that whole thing. That is him making himself the leader of the others.
You're right.
That's what that is.
You're right. Wow. And so when he tells Locke to turn the wheel, how can he know that that's coming?
Yeah, it almost seems like it should work itself out in a way where when Man in Black is storming to Jacob and he's going to kill him, it should almost be like then that's when he thinks, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll send Locke back in time and make him the leader so I can be doing what I'm doing now. That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
That's what's weird. That's what's circular about it. It's like he's in the position he's in for the thing that would be beneficial for him to be right now.
Right. It's almost like he's already done it.
Exactly. I mean, that's what you get with these time loops is he's sort of obligated to do it. He just hasn't done it yet because the effects have already happened because they start in the past. Right.
Because Locke's going to proceed from there to the 50s and give that compass to Richard, and then that sets it on its infinite loop.
So it's like he's already done it, so that's why he doesn't have to sort of think to do it yet before he has done it. But it's like, well, when does he actually think to do it?
Exactly. It's just like the compass. There's no origin point.
There's no origin point, and it makes it seem like all he has to do to make this work is to sort of believe in the past that at some point in the future he's going to do this, and so somehow it automatically just happens. You know what I mean? I don't. How else do you get into that loop of events without it just sort of you just believing this thing will happen and it just kind of happens?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
He can't be, and then unless you say, okay, well, he was, and I guess this doesn't even solve the problem of, okay, what if Man in Black is in the 50s seeing Locke appear, but he still got to know or find out at some point he's the person who sent him back there.
Right.
Or I guess you can be crazy and say, have a divergent view of timelines and say, well, something sent Locke to the past in the 50s, and in a sense, it wasn't Man in Black until he actually does that later. You know what I mean? Like we don't know who did that, and then Man in Black says, "Oh, I'll do it," and then by him doing it, that becomes what makes it happen.
Oh God!
But you could sort of view it. You could view it in this way of, of it having a cause, but the cause itself not being defined until it needs to be defined.
Well, I see.
Which I think, if you look at, quantum physics or something, that might make sense of, the whole idea.
We're going to bring in quantum physics to make this work?
Not that I'm a quantum physicist, although it says it on my business card.
Wow. That's a cool thing to put on your business card, I have to say.
Yes, I have to bring in quantum physics to make my part work. This is how much work Lost is making me do to make the show make sense. But I was going to say, the principle of quantum physics is that things aren't really defined until you observe them.
Right. It's only a probability.
It's only a probability. So this idea, so if you put that with my idea here that something made Locke go back in time, but it's not defined until that future, that point in the present where somebody actually does it, it happens to be a Man in Black making it happen.
Yes.
But, it doesn't really answer some of the questions of, when does he think to do that?
I wish we could have seen that. I wish they had given us some sense of, his awareness of their time traveling. I mean, I guess it would have been hard to do at that point in the show because we don't even know who he is or what's going on. But I don't know. I wish I had some sense of how he how he perceived all those things going on. Because like when he tells Locke to move the island in the cabin, that's one thing. Or when he sends Richard, to go talk to the old Locke, that's another thing. But like when he talks to Locke in the donkey wheel chamber, they are currently time traveling. They are currently in the past when that happens. So how is he even Christian Shepherd? I mean, at that point, Christian Shepherd isn't even on the island. Like that. Like, how,
wow. How has this point never come up before? I don't ever remember us talking about.
I don't either.
Why is he looking like Christian Shepherd before Christian's? It's almost like. See, and that's what's weird is. With this time travel stuff, it almost seems like Man in Black is operating, in these various time periods with this sort of objective consciousness.
Yeah, yeah.
Where he's able to be aware of future events, in the past when he needs to be. So he's aware of what he's, of sort of the totality of his plan when he's telling this to Locke, but he shouldn't be yet. He shouldn't even be able to look like Christian unless you can think that he's pulling it out of Locke's head.
Yeah,
like, what he expects to look like.
He could be doing now. That's the crazy
but why
answer.
But here's the thing: why does he know to do that? Why does he know to appear as Christian Shepherd? He has to. It's like that's what I'm saying about this objective view of his plan. It's like. He only should be able to know to do that if he knows what his long-term plan is.
God, that's
right?
such a good, wow. Okay, that makes it really, so he scans Locke and he sees the memory of Christian Shepherd in the cabin talking to him. Does he realize, oh man, that's me in the future?
Like, that's me in the future, and what I need to do now is to tell this guy to turn the wheel and tell my son that I said hello. Like, that's just crazy. That's craziness.
That is really crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how we never spotted that. That's a big hole,
That is a big hole.
That's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. It was at the time because Christian Shepherd was this vague entity that didn't really have any defined limits. So why not show up any given place at any given time?
Showed up on the freighter, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like he hadn't been limited yet, so there was no craziness about it. But yeah, in retrospect, it's I guess that's what we're supposed to believe. Although Locke didn't even know that Christian was Jack's dad. He even asked, "Who's your son?" So where did he get that from? Like that's.
Wait, where did that Christian? Why did he know to tell that to?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is he's trying to get Jack to he's trying to see that's oh god this show.
Oh my god, is he getting?
He's trying to get Jack to convince the others to bring Locke's body back to the island, right? I mean, that's really what's going on with all that, isn't it?
Okay.
Yes. Like he's trying to fulfill that circle of Locke being dead, and he needs to. I think he needs to have Locke's body back on the island to make the second part of his plan work.
Yeah.
So I feel like that whole tell my son, I said, well, that's what all that's about. That's what Locke is leaving the island for, I think, is so he can die to come back and all that stuff. So
yes,
it's just weird for Smokey to be able to make this plan work in various time periods when there's time travel involved. Now here's a way out that they might suggest that I think is still dubious.
Okay.
If Smokey was time traveling with them, and so
oh my god,
it's that Locke, the Locke, Locke who's at the about to turn the wheel, it's from the same time period as that Christian Shepherd.
Okay. Okay.
Somehow
Smokey
was coming with them or something.
On the other hand, there is I hate to do this, but Lost makes me do this. On the other hand, there is considerable exposition that suggests that Man in Black did not time travel because, for example, he was hanging out with Claire during that time. And, there's she's been like accosting the others and so on. He's telling her they got her baby, and all that is happening during the time travel period.
You
know?
Yeah.
So that suggests he's not time traveling with them.
All right, well, big plot hole it is. The answer we'll go with. It's the answer that comes up most. It's like a magic 8-ball for Lost.
And I feel like if he really was time traveling with them, he should have been stuck in the 70s until the incident stuff.
And how do you know he wasn't?
Well, because he had already killed Jake.
Don't you remember that episode with Two Smokies?
Oh, I wish. That would have been fantastic. So, like, I feel like that's a good answer that doesn't quite work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, no, that's pretty weird. Well, we'll see, a couple of years when we get to that episode.
And
how exactly that plays out.
Like my general sense is that, but before it's revealed who he is and what his limits are, he doesn't have those. And he is able to just freely move across time and do all these crazy things. And once they've settled him down and said, here's who you are, here's what you can do, and here's what you can't do. There's no hint in season 6 that he has this crazy perception of time that, like, you know what I mean? Like, he totally lives like a normal person in season 6. And it's hard for me to believe that he could pull off the stuff that he supposedly did before that.
Yeah, I gotta say, season 6, Man in Black / Locke, I mean, they had him, so much time with him just, like, walking around and, whittling, and they made him seem like Locke. They didn't make him seem like Man in Black.
Yeah.
Who I feel like we didn't see him doing that kind of stuff when he was human. Here he is sort of about, to make his great escape, and he's just sitting around and whittling and, for whatever reason, waiting for Jack and those guys to come to him.
I guess that was one time where he knew the future for no apparent reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just waiting for them to show up.
Yeah, he just knew that was going to happen. But
he didn't know that his plan was going to fail and that he was just going to die.
Yeah, he didn't know that. Or did he? And he tried anyway.
He just wanted to die. I don't know. Why not?
He wanted to see if he could change his future. I don't know.
Oh, okay. He was testing
free will versus, determination. So
I would have liked to have seen that show.
Was that's a different show?
I think that's a different one, but I like that show. It's a cool show idea you got.
I'll pitch it to JJ.
That's the other thing about Lost. Like, there's such a wild swing from, like, insane, crazy, like, over the top sci-fi ideas to like very mundane, like down to earth, like no craziness at all. And I feel like the show was uneasy about like those extremes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean you go from the Losties time traveling and smoke monsters taking other people's shape to Claire trying to decide if she's going to keep her baby.
Exactly.
It's just like, okay, I can handle one of those.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and they never. I feel like the symbol for this is the fact that we never see the smoke monster transform. I feel like they never were willing to get explicit about it. Like they would imply craziness, they would imply insanity, but they were never willing to get too specific about what it actually meant.
There's not a lot of rewards for being specific. In
that's
storytelling.
True.
There just really isn't, because the more specific you are, I mean, the more you can criticize, the more things don't line up.
True.
So and they obviously know that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But damn it made me want to know.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously, there's detractors from not being specific. You can anger your audience.
Indeed, and I think they did. I mean, I think a lot of people are really angry about that path. But, you might be right. It's possible that if they were more specific, it would have been even worse.
Mhm.
People would have been even more mad.
Yeah. I think especially the crazier the circumstance, the more specific, the worse I think it probably would be. The more details about who did what now and when and how and what.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I say what twice because it's so confusing.
You should. And instead, they can just step back and say, well, it's up to your interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
We leave it to you
exactly.
to decide what really happened.
Well, he just overreacted.
Well, yeah, exactly. What was the loophole?
What was the rules that they, that he broke? Oh, well, whatever you think they are.
Yeah. That was what they preferred, but man, oh God.
Mhm.
I don't know what it was. It's something about. I mean, there's a lot of situations where people throw shit out there, and I don't feel this burning need to know what they have in mind. But that one of the magic things about Lost is that I really want to know those answers.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, even though I'm not convinced there's a lot of thought put into them and that they even make sense, I just want to know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
There's something compelling about it.
Yeah. Well, I think what's compelling in a nutshell is the illusion that these so-called answers would tie into the mysteries and make it all make sense and work, and sort of in this general sense, you want to find out, well, what do they mean by the rules? Because maybe it's ancient Babylonian rules, and that'll tie into the history of the island or whatever. You want to find these answers, I think, because the big mysteries are so go largely unanswered continuously. So I feel like that's the big that's a big driving force behind wanting to find out the meanings and get really specific behind what's going on.
Yeah. And, if I think about a scene like where Michael tells Hurley what the whispers are, like, that is not satisfying, I have to admit. I mean, It's probably the opposite of satisfying. It's kind of one of the most disappointing scenes of the entire season, I would say. So, if that's what it looks like, if that's what I'm going to get when they tell me answers, I don't want that, I guess. I guess I'd rather have this confusing mess that I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I want more somehow.
Yeah. Well, it's like government that way, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I need it. I really do.
We want more, but it's just a confusing mess we don't understand right now.
A little political commentary. Why not?
Hey, it's not a podcast without a little political stuff. Take my Republicans, please.
Oh! I don't know what that means,
party,
but
maybe I should say, take my Tea Party, please.
Okay.
Well, I think we had a pretty good post-solitary discussion that had nothing to do with solitary.
It's I would say it has as much to do with solitary as it. Solitary is very provocative. I mean, it just opens up the doors. I feel like more or less, except for Jacob, I would say, and maybe the island itself. I feel like it kind of all the big mysteries of Lost are introduced.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like
except for Dharma stuff.
That's what makes it provide. Well, okay, Dharma. Oh God.
Do you count Dharma?
I don't even count Dharma anymore. That's how bad it was.
Oh man, all those issues got solved, and it was boring.
It was so boring. I don't even see them as mysterious.
What was Dharma up to on the island? Not much.
Nothing at all. Don't worry about it.
What did they know about the island? Nothing.
Very, very little.
Those are the answers you wanted, right, folks?
But all those crazy experiments, they must have been doing something interesting, right?
No,
not at all.
Not for very long. Anything that was interesting did not happen for very long. Yeah, I just love this idea that, I mean, I guess we don't know, but, or I don't know, maybe you could say we do know, but because Dharma sort of went defunct as far as, I guess, the official word. But, this is an organization that sort of like, was making, animals time travel and stuff and doing these really crazy experiments that didn't seem to be continued in the mainland. Like, they were really breaking ground here, especially in the 70s for, well, I guess probably any time period for some of that stuff they were doing. And it just is like, okay, that's gone now. They never, emailed their research to anybody or I guess, snail mailed their research to...
Right. Yeah, their findings didn't seem to really make any impact.
Yeah, just to say, FYI, time travel is possible. You might not be able to recreate this, elsewhere, but, it is possible. We've done it on rabbits or whatever.
And I think the idea there was that was the orchid. I think the idea there is that they harnessed the power of the donkey wheel.
Mm-hmm. Say that again.
If I may say that phrase.
Oh, jeez. Let's not say that it wasn't the wheel they were getting power from.
Okay, but
the energy.
It harnessed the same thing that the donkey wheel was built to harness.
Yeah.
Because that was clearly connected with time travel. So I feel like that's the idea there. Like the only reason they were able to do it was the power on the island. Mm-hmm. That allowed for time travel.
Yeah, like I said, they may not, you can't necessarily reproduce that experiment anywhere else, but the fact that, the result was time travel is possible is fairly noteworthy.
I would say so, yeah. I think most people would take note. Now, they might have trouble, since they were so secretive and, one of their head scientists just starts, saying he doesn't want anyone to know his name, so he just makes up names for himself, that's really not...
What scientist is doing groundbreaking research and doesn't want people to know his name?
Exactly.
That's not plausible. Come on.
It's really not plausible. Yeah, I feel like they're so secretive that they're not even reporting their results. They're
Great science work, guys. Great. Publish in a journal? No way.
Yeah, they were trying to save the world or something, and they thought that, they would just do it within their organization, and they didn't
Dharma,
need
saving the world one secret at a time.
It makes them look really bad, but I feel like that's the story we get, We
get a bad story. Okay, I'll believe it.
That's what they did. For me, the most interesting thing about Dharma is the fact that they hosted our time-traveling Losty characters for a period of time. Mm-hmm. That's probably the coolest thing that they ever did for me.
Well, yeah.
And that had really nothing to do with them. They just happened to be there.
Mhm. Yeah, the cool thing about Dharma was the Losties. Yeah. I think it should be true to the extent that it's about the Losties, so, it works.
Yeah. And, I liked Calvin. He was cool and whatever, but mostly what they did was just lame-o. Mhm. So it's hard to, it's kind of amazing since Dharma was more or less for several seasons, I feel like everybody thought that Dharma had a major role to play in the big answers for the show.
I never thought that.
It's really...
Hey, if Lost can retcon, I can retcon,
okay.
Right?
Okay. Well, I like that. We can retcon our own, opinions.
Yes.
That's great.
My theory was there was two groups of others, and neither was important.
Nice.
I distinctly remember saying that.
That was a really good theory. You were really spot on with that. I don't know why I didn't give you credit back then.
You were drunk.
Ah, yes.
Yes, those early podcasts.
Yeah, it's amazing to me considering how big of a it was such a focal point for seasons, shall we say 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's amazing that I, at this point, don't even consider them a major part of the mysteries of the show.
Mhm. Well, the show doesn't either, so
Yeah. Pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, for me, it's, the mysteries are more about the island itself, and
I get so frustrated. Damn it, with season 5 and the whole incident thing. I really wish that the whole point of them going back to the past.
Oh God.
I know, right? I'm on my soapbox here. I really wish it was like, I really wish it was something like Man in Black has this plan. He's got this loophole. He's trying to get Locke's body, and that involves sending, Locke back in time, and some of the Lockies go back in time with them. Some of them get stuck in the 70s. Okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I feel like the incident should have been Jacob's way or the Losties' way or somebody's way of sort of counteracting that plan, and sort of like something like Man in Black saying, "Hey, I know what I'll do. I'll get the bulk of his precious candidates stuck in the 70s.
Yeah.
See if they take over the island now.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening through Jack and all the other people in the 70s is they get back to the present to continue the fight that Jacob is sort of,
right.
The war that was supposedly coming that never came. And
what do you mean?
Much like the army that never got trained. Some of that seems to go together.
I agree. Very similar.
Yeah, I guess they couldn't fight a war without that army. So,
mm-hmm.
But I feel like they missed another opportunity to make the incident be about their larger circumstance and not just be I don't know what. I don't know what it became, but it just became a plot device, I guess, to get them out of the 70s. And not sort of this grander plan of going against Man in Black or anything like that.
Again, I say I like that show. I wish I could have seen that show.
Yes. Yeah, I wish I could have seen that show too.
Because since Man in Black is in fact behind the time travel, he's not only behind the time travel, but he's behind the return of the Oceanic Six.
Mm-hmm,
So every part of that thing he was directly responsible for. Mm-hmm. So I like the idea that he wanted to just trap them in the 70s so that they couldn't prevent him from leaving.
Yeah.
But that, Jacob figured out a way for them to, counteract that and get back to the present so that they could stop him,
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I wish they had said that.
It seems like if you say that in the writer's room at Lost, they'd be like, yes, let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. What happened? What did they, why? That seems like a very clear, easy sort of thing to do, but,
yeah. Yeah, it fits, and even with Jacob saying to Man in Black right before he dies, they're coming,
Mm-hmm.
that fits perfectly with that kind of theory.
Totally fits in perfectly, like this whole idea that you thought you won, but my team's on its way.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome if that's what he was talking about. I don't know what he was talking about.
Who knows we still don't know what he was talking about.
I guess he's talking about Bram and Alana. I don't know what he's talking about.
He's talking about somebody. A lot of people were coming, so.
People coming, people going.
It was any, all, or none of them. I'm sure about that.
Well, there you go.
But instead, and I do feel that the incident was mishandled. I think the fact that they wanted to tease us with an alternate universe and stuff. In retrospect, I'm not sure I like that decision because I feel like that was too distracting for the entire final season to like try to fake us out with that.
Mm-hmm.
I wish somehow they could have not set it up, but just shown it. And let us draw our own conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked that better than the explicit tease that, even in the official description of LAX, in the Flash Sideways, we see what would have happened if Flight A15 had not crashed.
Mm-hmm.
They're explicitly misleading us about what we're watching there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not what would have happened because the situations are different, Jack has a son.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what would have happened if they didn't crash on the island. It's a whole different sort of universe, sort of literally.
Totally. And it's, I mean, in reality, it's in the afterlife after Flight A-15 crashed. So they're, you know, I mean, they're in a
minor point.
So it's not doing that at all, and it just makes. I mean, that was the whole reason they did the incident. You know, that became the focus. It was Dan's theory about how they could change the past because they're the variables. And
and that's what it should have been. It should have been they think they're trying to change the past and they're trying to negate, you know, all this stuff and try to. That's exactly what, you know, that was right of them, I think, to sort of make that be the sort of their plan of attack. Okay, yes. We're going to erase all the bad stuff that happened to us and blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, Juliet hits the bomb. It doesn't reset everything, but it gets them back to the present. That's when they should have realized, you know, going with the theme of the show, you can't escape your destiny, you know, you can't escape who you are, whatever, you know, and say, okay, now we're back in the sort of, you know, back into the fight, basically.
Yeah.
You know, but nobody ever realized that they had the wrong idea about what the incident was going to do.
Right. Right.
And I just hate that. I really hate that they never, you know, they're like, great, Jack, thanks. And it's like, you should be thanking him. He got you back to your own time period. You know? Like, that's, you know, he got, you know, the others would have killed you, you know, if you guys would have stayed there and got caught.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, not the others, Dharma.
Right.
So it's just like, I just hate that they didn't acknowledge, like, well, thanks for, and it's like Sun and Jin, you know, got reunited, you know, Jin gets back, or who is it?
Jin.
Yeah, Jin gets back, sorry. You know, and of course, back to what we were saying about Man in Black, this being his plan, you know, he tells Sun, you know, he alludes to the fact that all this is going on, you know, telling Sun it's going to be a while before she sees Jin and, you know, or whatever his line about she's got to have a journey or whatever before she sees him again or whatever, you know.
You're right. That shows he is aware that they were on the island in the 70s. So,
yeah, it makes it seem like he's aware of when Jin is going to reappear in that present time period.
You're right.
Somehow.
Yeah. Didn't really think about that.
I would believe that Man in Black has this objective, omniscient perspective on time if he wasn't killed very easily in the end.
I know. That just totally.
If it wasn't for that little bitty thing, I would think, okay, he just knows when things happen at any point. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, a villain that powerful, like, I like that. That's cool. That makes him strong. That makes him interesting.
But of course, he couldn't know that he would never get off the island because then that presents him with a different problem.
Right.
His omniscience sort of proving that he'll never get what he wants. That really shouldn't stop her from trying. But it's like well, you either know the future or you don't know the future, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, Desmond.
Uh-oh.
Claire getting on a helicopter.
Oh God! Speaking of frustration, wow. Yeah. And also, speaking of things that would have been very easy to tie up if they felt like it. Flash Sideways, they could show whatever the fuck they want. They could have thrown it a helicopter. Why not? They had Desmond going to the afterlife. You know, they could have made up some bullshit about that's what it really was.
Yeah, Claire's a helicopter pilot in the afterlife, you know?
Oh, man. Perfect.
You just see, you know, she gets in a
Step
helicopter.
back, I am a helicopter pilot.
To fly it somewhere, yeah. Why not?
Wow. I would like to have seen that. That's the easy points, you know. They could have picked that up and just didn't care, didn't bother. I think, you know, when they originally said that, they had a different plan and then they changed their mind. But going back to the incident, I like the idea. I just wish there was some hint that Jacob had a clue that was going on.
I wish there was some hint that Jacob had a clue.
Okay, I could have ended the sentence there, I guess, but showing up to Juliet, you can go now, Juliet. Something like that. Just some kind of some sense that like he needed them back in the present, and he knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. It makes it seem so. I mean, it's one thing to not sort of do what we're saying plot wise, but it's another thing to not do it character wise, because it makes it seem like he's invested in these people that he's not that invested in.
Right.
Like the people that are going to sort of be responsible for his ultimate sort of goal and sacrifice. Having someone take over his job. Like he's not that concerned if it happens or not.
Right.
It's just that's so weird.
Yeah. He can't even be bothered to talk to them directly until he's been dead for a week, and most of them are all dead anyway.
Yeah, and he's got like 30 seconds before he'll, not be ever, visible again.
Yeah. Okay, now it's time to talk to you guys. Saying the last episode, and he barely has time to say anything. I mean, I think that was
he's like a high school guidance counselor that talks to you about college, like senior year, before you're like, so what do you think you want to do with what? What do you mean?
I feel like that device was very deliberately chosen. Like they knew what a can of worms the idea of sitting down with Jacob for a chat could open. If they had unlimited time, if there were no constraints. And so I think they built in that thing like, no, he's not going to have time to say a lot, so he can only say these specific things that we care about, that we need him to say. He needs to transfer power. He needs to vaguely explain why he chose them, and that's it. Jacob out.
Outie. Peace, guys.
And even saying you'll never see me again, and we don't. He never appears in the final episode.
So I hate to say this, but I just think it has to be true. By what Lost showed us, that Jacob and his brother, Man in Black, end up together in the afterlife, right?
Probably so.
I mean, I don't know who else they would end up with.
Yeah, that's got to be their people.
And I just think that's totally, obviously ironic.
And Mother too, probably.
Yeah, I just like the idea of Man in Black and Jacob spending another eternity, another life together, and Man in Black is like, I still can't get rid of you. I time traveled and changed bodies to get away from this guy, and now I'm spending eternity with him because I was on the island with him, and now, it's like, yeah, I just feel like that has to be true, and I think they, somehow it would be great if they could say that, because that's just, it makes it everything worth it, right?
Absolutely. After all that trouble.
Yeah, like they're still stuck together.
Millennia of conflict, and now they're just back to square one.
And now you really can't leave.
True.
If you think it's tough to leave an island, try leaving the afterlife.
I wonder what their afterlife would be like. Would it be in L.A. or would it be like on the island again?
Yeah, I think it'd be in L.A. No.
I mean, it didn't make sense
Boise.
for a lot of them to be in L.A.
I think Boise is where.
Boise, of course.
That's where all Romans have their afterlife, isn't it?
I see. I wasn't aware of that.
It's like Valhalla for Vikings.
I feel like most of us listening to this probably just learned that. That's an interesting fact. All Romans spend the afterlife in Boise. Note that, please.
Yeah, exactly. The Latin, of course, is Boiseus.
Of course. What else?
What else would it be?
It's so easy to speak Latin,
It really is.
Just throw an S on. Why not?
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. That whole, I don't know what show we're watching, but
yeah, it's amazing the stuff we've talked about, like how far that is from this episode we just watched.
Yeah, it's miles and miles and miles.
Like we're just way above and beyond, like the stuff that that the show's focusing on right now.
Mhm.
You know, and like that's what's supposed to be the overall, the big story. You know, the stuff we're watching right now is more the smaller stuff. You know, if you will, the filler.
Yeah. I will.
That kind of connects the larger story points.
Mhm.
And I feel like even if the smaller story points have inconsistencies, I wish the larger story at least, was coherent and made sense and kind of fit together.
I mean, it seems like, as you go from more subjective to objective when you're looking at a story and sort of, finer detail to broader points, it should get simpler, not more complicated.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I would think would be true, but it doesn't seem true in this show.
Not really. Yeah, so little things like, the little inconsistencies with Rousseau's story and all that, like, I'd rather live with those than having this, overall, like, issue of, people coming to the island, what they were doing when they time traveled, why the incident happened, why the afterlife happened, like all these huge story points being, also being confusing and, pointlessly ambiguous.
Mhm.
Like it's like on every level there's problems. And it just seems like there should be a simple story there that you can tell, and I guess there is, but
I mean, the simple story should be Jacob and Man in Black have a philosophical, disagreement about the nature of humanity.
Yeah.
And decide to have it played out on this island that one was chosen to protect, and then Man in Black. And then this is where it gets complicated because there's multiple goals here. So Man in Black not only wants to prove him wrong with this experiment, but he wants to get off the island.
Right.
And then that splits off into potentially needing a body to get off the island and needing to kill Jacob. And then that splits off into, what is this loophole and how's he going to do it?
And we've already left the territory of a simple, reasonable
Yeah,
story.
by getting to the motivations of the antagonist, we've already made it really complicated. Like the premise, like when they set that up, that's what it was about. That's why people were coming to the island was this test,
Yeah.
It made sense. It worked. It's okay, cool. Like it's almost like some sort of experiment or something. It's almost like trading places or something, where they're gonna set up this experiment and see what happens.
Right, and I think we've seen the island serve that function already. So it makes sense. Like the island has been a place for people to, get a fresh start and try to determine who they want to be.
Yeah, and it ties into, what we thought about the Swan Hatch being an experiment and being psychological and testing people. And so it's like, okay, here's an idea. It is kind of about, and it is an experiment in a way, in a larger sense,
Yes, yeah.
So it all ties together, but then it gets more convoluted when extra stuff gets added and all these other motivations.
Yeah.
And Jacob being hands off and things happening and then time travel and
Yeah. You throw enough of that in, and your simple, clear, like what's the word? Elegant story is just a big mess, a big sloppy mess.
Yeah, gotta love it.
I know, best show ever.
Best show ever. Yeah, don't change a thing. Except for all that stuff we talked about. Well, all right. This is a long commentary podcast. I think we did an hour and a half, not on Solitary, but I'm sure listeners will enjoy that.
It initially branched from Solitary, but it kind of turned into a mini overall lost slowdown.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that, almost specifically, the things that we point out that don't make sense are really the catalyst for, you know, our ability to even talk about the show continually. So,
True.
you know, if it all made sense, it was nice and neat. No matter how interesting it was, there'd be less to talk about.
You're right.
You know, and so that's, you know, that's what's weird, is it, whatever the flaws are, or whatever is really the bulk of sort of not where the interest comes from, but, you know, it's like it's fueling the interest because of just trying to define, you know, what we've seen.
Yeah, it's true. And that's what they say. I mean, they say that's what they want. You know, they want people to be able to continue to discuss the show once it's over.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it's the power of ambiguity and lazy writing.
I know. That's what for me is the basic problem with that, though. Like,
mm-hmm.
I'm just not convinced that was actually their intention.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, to me, it's more so that it kind of fell into their lap that they had this big ambiguous mess by lazy writing, and then they could say that that's what they wanted, rather
mm-hmm.
than they planned from the start, and so they threw in all these crazy things that don't make sense just so people would have something to talk about.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle there. Of sometimes they want to be ambiguous to continue discussion, and sometimes it's lazy writing, and they go, no, we never intended to tell you that.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You were going to. You just didn't.
Yeah. I feel like they definitely changed their minds on things, and I guess I believe that, you know, there are times obviously when they don't want to reveal things, and so they're being ambiguous to fuel interest. But personally, I think that they had answers in mind at the time that they were heading towards, and I feel like they never introduced something with the intention of never revisiting it and never resolving it. Like, I actually don't think that happened. I feel like that just added up over time when they just, in fact, did not address it.
Yeah.
You know, in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my theory. I mean, I don't really know what went on behind the scenes, but my sense of them as writers is that they were very concrete about things, and it just so happened that their shifts in plans resulted in these, you know, piling up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true for the most part, but I think for some of those, some things you could identify in this category, it was probably like they had an idea of what the answer was, but not necessarily a concrete answer. Like, this is it, it's got to be this. It's like, well, this is what it is now. When we get to the next plot point for that story, you know, it might be better to make it this person who did it, or, you know, it might be better to do X, Y, Z. Because I think that, you know, you can set up something and have an idea of the cause, but or how you're going to pay it off, and have that change. So you are changing it, but you're not sort of, you know, disregarding an entire idea that was concrete at first, you know. Right,
but when you originally wrote it, you weren't saying to yourself, I'm just going to leave this open forever and allow it to confuse.
Yeah, I don't think I doubt there was ever something that they were like, here's something we're going to introduce, and we'll never come back to it. You know, I think if anything they introduced, I think there are specific things they probably introduced that they knew they weren't coming back to, but they didn't necessarily introduce it just to have people talk about it. It was, you know, it's more of, hey, we're going to bring this thing up, but we probably won't come back to it. You know, we're probably not going to come back to, you know, I don't know, X, Y, Z.
Like, imagine, for example, imagine the reveal of Locke's dad, you know, when they show him, that big cut. And then, 5 episodes later, we get the next piece of that story. Imagine if they never showed him again, if they never even mentioned him again. You know, that would be really crazy. That would be like, oh my God, what happened? You know? And that would be like, you know, wow, you know, they're really throwing me off. But obviously, when they throw a reveal like that, they are intending to come back to it later, even if, you know, at the time, you know, they want us to wonder how he got there and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, contrasted with something like, how long do you think it'll take to train an army? I feel like when they have Jack say that, they actually do intend to pay that off, just like they intend to pay off Locke's dad. But as the season developed, there was just no place for training an army anymore.
Yeah, that training army thing is weird. I mean, I think you're right about that, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like to an extent they should have known there was, that they never really envisioned, I don't know, I guess what my point is, I'd be hard-pressed for them to believe that they really thought, like, there was going to be a training scene, a montage scene of them training, and they were going to get sticks and bamboo and make arrows and do these things to sort of prepare for, and then of course if you do that, then you have to pay off scenes where they're actually fighting others.
Yes. And
that's weird. I don't know if I believe that they really thought that was going to happen, but I think that that definitely they made it seem like they thought that.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I just don't really see how they could have thought that had a place on the show, especially in season 1, where a good fair number of them are really going to arm themselves and fight the others. To what extent? To what end would that have even made any sense? It would just make people die.
Yes.
So yeah, that army thing is weird. I mean, I do think they wanted to pay it off with something else. I just don't think it was an obvious, like, we're really going to have an army fight. I think they did want to do something else with that, though.
And I think the later version of that was the war that was coming.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I really don't believe that they intended that to go nowhere.
Well, see, I think the thing with the war, I would say, to explain that is, the war came, it was just very lackluster. It wasn't, they just used the wrong words. It should have been, a kerfuffle is on its way.
A minor skirmish.
It just doesn't have the same ring, I think. I think so. That's what's weird. I think the war kind of came. It just wasn't what we pictured, because we thought, okay, Bram and Alana and Jacob's crew versus Widmore. Okay, then we got, what we're going to really have an all-out battle here. No, not really. Not. Yeah. So it's like I think that case they did pay it off, but it was a lackluster payoff. That was so lackluster, it seemed like they didn't even pay it off.
I'm just not convinced that the payoff was what was intended when they originally set it up. That's what I'm saying. Like, they did pay it off, but, like, and, I mean, they specifically have the line, you said there was a war coming. I think it just got here. Like, that was the payoff, absolutely. But, like, yeah. I'm just not convinced that actually was what they had in mind when they set the war up. I feel like they envisioned a bigger thing, and when they came to writing the stories for season 6, it just wasn't going to work. I feel like
I mean, that's definitely possible. It just seems like if you look at how it all plays out, what bigger scale war could they have done? I mean, how does war look on an island? I mean, what would it have been?
I feel like that's their eternal problem.
What would have been more warlike than what we saw with Kimi's team attacking?
Right.
I mean, that's as big of a war as we saw on the island.
Totally.
It's just like, it would have just looked like that. It would have just been people with guns. It would have just. So yeah. I feel like they didn't. I don't know if I necessarily agree that they didn't do what they planned to do, because I just feel like our expectation of what that line meant isn't necessarily what their expectation of what the payoff was going to be. You know what I mean? I feel like when we hear them say a war is coming, we expect what we didn't get, basically. And
right.
when they say a war is coming, I think they know what they're capable of showing and what they mean by that, and I feel like it's just a difference of what they were going to be able to show and do.
Right.
Not necessarily that they changed their mind about it, but that they just had a different, it would almost be like something like with the Army line. How long does it take to train an Army? And they train like 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
And we go, well, that's not an Army, but to them it's like, well, this is what we meant because this is what we were going to do, and it just it seems like that, so I feel like it's kind of something like that.
Yeah.
But it's always hard to know because we weren't there and all that stuff.
True. Yeah, I mean, obviously I have no idea. I could be wrong. It might even be a budgetary thing. I feel like they wanted a bigger war than they actually showed.
Now I would say they might have wanted more, maybe effects and explosions. That beach scene when Widmore is firing at them. I mean, maybe that they wanted more drama and conflict with that. But in terms of war and battle, it just people were so dispersed, and it just wasn't the head-to-head, two sides coming to a head that I envisioned.
But all the pieces are there,
But it was just more little bitty conflicts going on between certain parties, than it was a big head-to-head war.
Yes.
And there's no point of having a war against one man. Like that's what's weird is it's kind of everybody against Locke. So what are they really? What we envision really look like on the island?
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, it would have been awkward. Really, the only army that Locke could really have would have been the others who were following him, and it would have been kind of weird to have the others going to war against Widmore.
Trying to fight Widmore, I mean that just
who was actually sent there by Jacob, and he was one of them.
And I feel like when they say a war is coming, we're thinking about Bram and Alana. We're thinking about them bringing more people.
Yeah.
And having some sort of army to themselves, but that doesn't obviously play out. I
mean, they have their showdown with the Man in Black, and they all just get killed.
But it's only a handful of them anyway. Yeah, it's still not to the scale that one might imagine. So
you're right. Yeah. I mean, Lost didn't ever really operate on that scale. It was always 20 or less, really.
Yeah.
For every big battle that they had.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just the scale the show was on, I guess.
It's just tough to be like the war is coming, and it's like for most of these people, the war has been off for a while because it's like they've been in these kind of situations since the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, someone's firing at us? You call this a war? I call this a Tuesday.
So true.
Well, all right. Are we trying to break a podcast record here, or are we gonna?
I don't think we can do that.
All right.
Unless you're ready for 35 hours.
35 hours on solitary. Go. You start. You take the first 30 hours. I'll take the last 5.
And for my 30 hours, I'm going to have 30 hours of silence.
Oh, wow. Best podcast ever, says the listeners.
Oh, man. Yeah. You might be right. It's always easy to say, oh, the writers did this, the writers did that. I mean, it's hard to nail that stuff down,
Mm-hmm.
I think Claire Helicopter, that's definitely an example of them changing their minds. I think they were going to put her on a helicopter, and they just didn't in the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a clear-cut, clear case of clear-cut case?
Clear-cut case, sure.
A clear case?
I guess you could say a clear case, but that's not really an expression. Until
now. The case is clear. You can see through it. That means it's obvious, right?
It makes sense. No, I mean, no one ever says that, but why not?
Well, why not indeed? Yeah, that seems like one where they, especially considering Desmond was right about all the stuff he was predicting, and then he's wrong about that one.
Right.
That makes it seem like they did just change how it worked out, and especially considering they did have a helicopter available soon after all that stuff.
Yes.
But Claire was busy being with Christian or whatever.
Right.
So she couldn't get on it, but she could have gotten on it. It was very, it was close enough where they could have made that happen.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I think they I don't know, maybe the actress didn't want to be there for season 5 or whatever. They decided that she wouldn't get off the island.
Well, and here's the other thing. I think Desmond is just supposed to be seeing possible futures, right? Because he's seeing Charlie die and Charlie doesn't die.
True.
Because he's changing it. So I mean, I guess they would say, well, the future that where Claire gets on the helicopter changed, and and it could be Man in Black changes by by intervening, intercepting her.
Yes.
During that whole time period or something. So
true. You could certainly say that. That's probably what they would say. I think that's the answer. I'm still not convinced that's what they meant at the time they had him say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I also, all the stuff with Man in Black in season 4, like specifically like the way he takes Claire versus what we see later, and the appearance on the freighter to Michael, and the appearance to Jack off the island. Who I do think was intended to be, I don't even know that the Man in Black was quite conceptualized as a character at the time, but whatever that entity that Christian represented, I think that was all the same. The Christian we saw in the cabin, the Christian we saw on the freighter, and the Christian that Jack sees off the island, I do think they were all intended to be the same thing. And I think, the smoke alarm that Jack hears indicates that actually was the smoke monster.
Well, and it makes sense because he wants Jack to come back to the island.
Yes.
So
exactly.
It makes sense he would appear to him to sort of tempt him to come back.
Right, and I think that's another example of them they haven't yet defined the limits. They haven't quite worked out the character yet. So he really shouldn't be able to appear to Jack like that. But at that point, they haven't quite worked out that that's the case yet. So I think that's why we see that. And so later that's a problem, but like at the time it's not a problem yet.
Yeah.
Those are just the kinds of things that I think you can kind of pick up on that, I'll never know probably what really happened behind the scenes or, what the real story is with those things. But I don't know. The evidence seems clear-cut enough to me that, that's an example of that kind of thing, of them sort of just changing their minds, or maybe not quite changing their minds, but just, making their story specific, fleshing it out, and then creating inconsistencies. I feel like that maybe that's more what it is than changing their minds.
Yeah. And, stories evolve, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
And they say, oh, no, it's better for him to do it this way, or, it works better if he can't leave the island because he's trapped there. Remember, guys?
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I feel like at that point they haven't had a need to define what his goal is. And even until season 6, I mean, they haven't had a need to define what his goal is. And so
that's what's weird to me. Like, if it took, like, I feel like before season 6, they should know Jacob is bringing people to the island to prove Man in Black wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they should know that.
Well, they do. I mean, they show that at the end of season 5.
Yeah, and they should know that he wants to get off the island.
They should know that. I agree, and they probably do. But there's actually no indication in the show until season 6. So I'm just saying, like, whether they knew or not, there's nothing in the story that points in that direction until season 6.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he's not introduced until season 5 or whatever.
True. He's not introduced specifically until the last episode. So there's not a lot of time. But I feel like that gave them freedom. Then they could decide, okay, what's his goal going to be? What does he want?
He wants what everybody else wants on the show. How hard was it? How long did it take him to come up with that one?
Probably not long.
Hey guys, why don't we just make him want what every other character wants?
Except John Locke, which is what he says when he tells what his motivation is. I want the one thing John Locke never wanted. It's great.
Oh, Man in Black.
I know. He was our Voldemort.
Oh,
geez. And a sad Voldemort he was. I guess in a way, when I think about it, he is the perfect Lost villain.
Yeah.
He embodies the qualities that Lost has. Perfectly. Because if we got a villain like Voldemort, it kind of wouldn't fit on Lost. It would be weird.
What do you mean, like Voldemort?
A villain that was just unambiguously evil and, you know, completely straightforward in his motivations and methods and powers.
Yeah, we got the opposite of that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You know, I'm frustrated with that sometimes. I kind of wish he had been a better evil villain than he was. But on the other hand, it does just kind of fit the show better that he's sort of, you know,
a regular guy like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a villain like Ben's a villain.
Yeah.
You know, he's a guy who got in these circumstances, and as a result of that, he becomes a villain from the perspective of certain characters. But if you look at it from his point of view, you know, it wasn't his fault, the stuff that happened to him originally.
Hey, evil incarnate, you know, fell on me.
Exactly. And it wasn't because he was a bad guy. He just got trapped on that island, you know, because he happened to be, you know, his mother happened to be on a ship that got brought there.
Listen, you can't choose your parents, and you can't choose the mysterious islands you're born on.
Exactly. So, you know, you can blame him for the stuff he does later, but you can't really blame him for his circumstances. And that's just kind of weird, because Voldemort is sort of evil from the start. You know, even when he's a kid, he's, like, torturing other kids. Like, he's already bad. You know? And I feel like Man in Black was not bad really at all until he, you know, combined with Evil Incarnate and started killing people.
Yeah.
At will. You know, and even then, you know, there's certain situations where, you know, he has his reasons. And he is being trapped there.
Yeah, he is being trapped there.
And I do wish he had somehow been able to appreciate why he was trapped there. I don't know if Jacob ever even explained. Maybe Jacob didn't even know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they make it seem like he never really understood why he was. Everyone's calling me evil. I don't know why. I can just turn into a smoke monster. You know, it's almost like does he even know that he turns into Smokey? Like, does he even know how he comes off to people? It's almost like he doesn't even know. I love that. I love when Sun gets hit. She runs to the tree, and he's like, "Son, I didn't do nothing to you. You're totally wrong, son. I had nothing to do with what you're talking about." You know, he just seems oblivious to obvious. You know, his obvious influences. Yeah.
No, I think he is. It was the same with Sayid.
Yeah, totally.
You know, he's just like, oh, what did he he told you I'm Evil Incarnate.
And see, I think any other show, I think, would have explained to the audience why he's not recognizing that he's evil.
Yeah.
But Lost doesn't.
No.
You know, and the difference is not that, like, he's just a regular guy and therefore he doesn't think he's evil. It's like he needs to. It's like he has cause to address it because, you know, he's a smoke monster and he's dead and he can
appear as dead people. He can scan
your
memory.
People are calling him evil. Like he has reasons to question, but he doesn't really question it, and the show doesn't really question it.
And
or address the.
He's got this power to, like, influence people and make them, like, turn on each other or, you know, do what he wants them to. But he seems to think that that's just his natural persuasiveness and not not some supernatural force that's taking him over.
Yeah.
You know.
But you know, the whole thing about him taking over people, I still don't know what that's supposed to mean, because to me that says that the whole game, the whole experiment that they're playing is void, right? I mean, if he can control people just by talking to them, then I don't know. It just seems like it muddles the whole point of the game, obviously. You know?
Yeah. I agree.
Because then it says, well, people are good or bad depending on whether or not they talk to evil. You know, that's like the best you could say with this experiment, I think.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't seem like it's worth it.
And like with Sayid, it was one thing. There was these specific circumstances that led to him talking to him, but in the case of Rousseau's team, to return to solitary, you know, they're just like randomly walking through the jungle, and he attacks them and claims them, and it's sort of like there's nothing they did to bring that about.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That like their own actions really weren't reflected by the fact that they got claimed at all. Like they weren't, you know what I mean? Like Sayid has his evilness that he's wrestling with in a sense, so it seems like the evil would have an easier time taking him over or something because of the state that he's in. Like it makes sense, you know? But like with them, you don't have. They're just like they're just.
Well,
random.
yeah, you could put Claire in that category too.
Claire too.
She's not like Sayid, where she's evil, therefore she was claimed. It's like no, she just had this claiming thing.
She just had the bad luck of. It's like if you just randomly run into him, he can take you over no matter who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no matter how good you are. And
unless you're Jack Shephard.
Unless you're Jack Shephard, excuse me. I forgot about that. He fought the claiming off in the most underwhelming plot point of season 6. You're with me now. Cut to the next episode. Never mind.
Be with you.
Pass.
Yeah, I think that last part of season 6 when Jack goes with Locke and then Jack goes with Sawyer's team, then Jack goes back with Locke. And I think that gets a little messy.
It was really
all that back and forth and who killed the Jira passenger, all that stuff. And it's just like, that was really sloppy, I think.
It was really sloppy. It was. Yeah. Yeah, and just strange. Like.
It's just downright strange.
I mean, if ever there was a season that should be coherent, it's season 6.
Uh-huh.
And strangely, it's one of the least coherent seasons. It's got so many problems.
Yeah.
Like, why can't it work on its own merits? You know, like forget about the earlier stuff. Just the season 6 stuff is a mess.
Mhm.
You know, the stuff with the temple, the claiming stuff, Sayid coming back, Desmond, the Jira passenger.
It's like nothing worked out right in that season. You know, all that, Widmore's plan and all that stuff didn't work out right, and he's got his timetables and he's gonna, Zoe's trying to get Jen to was, tell her about the electromagnetic. Like none of that paid off.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it feels very organic the way that the story unfolds, but it was just very messy.
It was, and they kept gesturing in the direction of a story, but they never quite got there.
Look over there. There's a story right there. Where? Right there. Look, there's a story. Where? I'm looking. No, look right there. This is the story right there.
And I kept waiting for it, and you never quite get the story that you're waiting for.
It's like, wait, is that the story right there? Yeah, that's just paint drying.
Exactly. Yeah, why not tell us who killed the Jira passengers? I mean, there's just it's such a small point. I mean, why leave that in?
Then you have to get the logistics right. Then you have to say, well, who did it? Where was the person when they did it? How could they have done it?
Mm-hmm.
It seems like another one of those. There's no reward for.
I see.
So I guess the drawback is greater than the reward.
So they have to kill them because they just want them out of the way.
Yeah, they got to have them out of the way.
But paying it off, like explaining the mystery, is just going to create more problems.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll just kill them off and never explain it, and have everyone deny that they did it.
You killed them? No, you killed them. I don't know who killed them.
It's almost like they just died. Like no one did it.
Nobody did it.
They all just suddenly died inexplicably. Some kind of plague or something. Like that's just so weird.
The sickness, maybe?
Yeah. Finally, there's the sickness.
That's why we could never find the sickness on the island. It had moved to the Hydra Island.
Of course.
Yeah, in the winter, it migrated.
Yeah. It just went to the other island for the winter.
Yeah.
Who saw that coming?
Maybe that's what happened. Like there was a sickness on the island, and then when the purge happened, the sickness was like, we don't want to die, so it went to the Hydra Island.
Oh, okay, because the island was filled with poison gas, and that would have killed the sickness just like it killed everybody else, because the sickness didn't have a gas mask. So
naturally.
Okay, perfect. Wow, you've answered a question. I feel like we solved the mystery.
Just solved the mystery of the illness, of the sickness. There it is.
It's got nothing to do with Smokey. It's just its own thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well.
Oh, man.
Suffice to say, no matter how much we talk about this show, nothing will ever be solved.
We're never going to fix it.
We're never going to fix it.
We could talk about it for 40 more, and we're going to, by the way. We could talk about it for 40 more hours, and we're never going to make it work.
I feel like it's like we're in like marriage counseling, and we've been going through counseling with Lost and talking about our problems and our issues, and what we realize is, you know what, this is just never going to work. Like, we could either just play this game forever, or we can realize that our partner here has issues that just they aren't compatible.
Yes, but I have to admit it's some kind of weird syndrome. I can't let it go. I can't just divorce
Well, the
from
sex
Lost.
is so great, right?
Yeah.
The sex is too good, so that's why we stay with Lost.
That's it. I guess.
But but we're just trying to make this relationship work.
But I just never remember what happened.
Just like sex.
But I keep returning for more. I don't know what it was, but I know I want more.
All right. Thanks and namaste.
Namaste and good luck.